Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto acts like a fox. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Crow in the Mist and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Team 7, consisting of Jounin Hatake Kakashi, and Genin Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura and Uzumaki Naruto, were standing in front of the mission desk waiting for their next mission. The Sandaime Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, looked up from the pile of scrolls and papers sitting in well-sorted piles on the long wooden desk and addressed the team in front of him. Team 7, we have a large number of D-rank missions for you to choose from. Most just came in this morning. There's one for maintenance at the orphanage, gardening, walking the Inuzuka dogs, cleaning. Someone is moving house, and there's also feeding the Nara clan's deer, among others. He looked at them all individually, waiting for them to choose what one they wanted. Just as Kakashi was about to respond, a certain knuckle-headed blonde stepped forward, slamming his hands on the long desk. But Gigi, come on, those are the lowest of low kind of missions you can get. We need something more challenging. And besides, the Inuzukas walk their own dogs. Sakura looked at him with wide eyes. How dare he speak to the Hokage like that? He should show some respect. As this thought occurred, her inner self proclaimed that he did have a point. And the deer are the Nara's responsibility. Heck, the buck would attack us if even when near. So why should we? Naruto was cut off mid-sentence by a glaring face right in front of his own. Don't speak to the Hokage like that, you ignorant baka. That's disrespectful. It's quite alright, Sakura. This old man needs some kick in his life. As Sarutobi said that, Sakura blushed and bowed her head in respect before stepping back into her place. Now Naruto, to explain your questioning, there is a new litter of dogs ready to start, but nobody has the time to step aside to walk all 7 of them. As for the Nara's deer, they are usually looked after by the head of the clan, whom is currently out on a mission, and the family sent this in as a D rank. I believe the buck is kept separate at this time of year. All eyes were converted over to the brown-haired Chunin sitting on the right-hand side of the Hokage. Yes, thank you, Iruka-san. Now Naruto, I understand that you are looking for something more fulfilling, but the only way I can assign the team a higher-ranking mission is if I am given consent from your Jounin leader and all teammates are accepting of it, and if of course you have completed enough D ranks, which I believe you have. At the end of his sentence, the Sarutobi received multiple reactions. Iruka stood up stating he didn't believe they were ready, while Naruto jumped around the room in joy and the brooding Uchiha smirked. Sakura, on the other hand, looked as if she was torn between two things, while the Hatake continued reading his little orange book that Hiruzen felt the need to look at too. Team 7, Iruka, please settle down. Kakashi, what is your decision? The Jounin slipped the book into his vest before calmly replying he believed they were ready for a proper mission. The same reactions broke out again, but the Hatake was quick to stop it. Iruka-san, I believe that Hokage-sama stated that we had a say while you do not, so please, sit down and stop acting as though you are still their sensei, because you are not. You have no right to say that you don't believe they are ready, because how would you know? They haven't been your students for quite a while now, but I on the other hand am their sensei, and I believe that they are ready. The room became quiet, and the academy teacher slowly let out a breath he'd been holding in before raising his chin slightly and resuming his place sitting down. The room stayed quiet for a little longer before the Hokage spoke up once again. I have a low-level C rank here that I deem you fit for completing. Before anyone took the opportunity to speak up, he raised his hand, silencing them all. It is a simple escort mission. You will be required to protect the client on his travels back home to the Land of Waves and accompany him until he finishes his job. Your client is a master bridge builder from the Land of Waves and needs to return to his project there. Do you understand? After received nods from the team and a grin from the Uzumaki, he spoke up again. Iruka, if you could please get the client? The man in question sent a glare towards the Jounin sensei before standing up to go and get the client. Moments later he returned with a man who appeared to be in his late 40s with the skin complexion of leather. The man, or the client, gulped down the contents of his cheap-looking sake bottle, not even sparing a drop. When he finished, he took his time to look at each of the members of the team. The 3 genin looked shocked at his appearance. They were supposed to protect this guy. Gah! These 3 little snot-nosed brats are supposed to protect me? I don't even believe they're ninja. I mean, look at the one in the middle, he's a little pipsqueak. As soon as he finished talking, everyone in the room other than the client and the victim counted down from 5. Hey! The blonde genin stomped his foot with his hand clenched at the side of his hands. It wasn't long before the team had departed from the tower and gone their separate ways. Naruto quietly made his way through the streets of Konoha, avoiding contact with the civilians, and once he finally reached the other side of town, he slipped into a rundown apartment building through the maintenance door. He set to a jog up the stairs and eventually reached his level. Slipping the key into the lock, he gave one quick look around the landing before entering. Okay, first C rank mission tomorrow, what to pack? As he looked around his small apartment, he couldn't help the sigh from escaping his lips. Hey Rama, think you could give us a hand here? He heard a snort before receiving a response. Get your scrolls, you moron. Gee, thanks. The boy rolled his eyes as he followed the helpful suggestion from his tenant. As Naruto made his way to his room, he gathered clothes and random weapons along with a few cups of instant ramen. Entering his room, he dumped it all on his bedroll, then went to his bookshelf and began shuffling around. He had almost dumped everything on the floor by the time he found his empty storage scrolls, but turned a blind eye to it as he set to work. What am I missing? He tapped his chin before running out of the room, soon returning with him arms full of more ramen cups. It wasn't long after that the boy stepped back and admired his handiwork of sealing up his belongings. When the sun rose the next day, 3 of 4 members of Team 7 were already awake. Sasuke and Sakura were already busy packing their things ready for their mission, while Kakashi was just leaving his stand at the memorial stone. The last member, Uzumaki Naruto, was still in bed tied up in his sheets in an uncomfortable mess. When the clock struck 6:30 a.m., Sasuke and Sakura were found standing at the main gates of Konoha waiting for the last 2 members of their team, and their client. So Sasuke, are you excited about getting a C-rank mission? The pink-haired girl looked towards the Uchiha with hope in her eyes. Waiting for an answer, she smiled and urged him on, Sasuke? Did you hear what I said? And with the answer, the young kunoichi looked down at her feet, stepping away. After several minutes of silence, a set of footsteps were heard crunching on the gravel, causing the two to look up. The footsteps belonged to their client, whom once again had a bottle of sake in his hand. How is he drinking this early? Crossed the two genins' minds. Your sensei just took off, said something about that little blonde brat, told me to just wait here with you. After a set of understanding nods, the trio fell into an awkward silence. Snoring silently, completely oblivious to the world, Naruto failed to notice someone had entered his house. The intruder was none other than his sensei, who made his way down the narrow hallway before sliding open the bedroom door slightly. The view of the genin still sleeping splayed out on his bed entered the jounin's sight, much to his dismay. The intruder looked at the alarm clock next to the bed before walking back down the hall into the open kitchen and living room and began packing a mission bag for Naruto. Then once done there, he put the pack over his shoulder and went back to the boy's bedroom. Said boy was still exactly where the man left him, in his white pajama pants depicting numerous bowls of ramen, with his bed hat set firmly on his head. At the sight of the boy, the man's sweat dropped before continuing over a messily folded pile of clothes, both old and new, on the far side of the room. Gathering up a few sets of clothes, giggling heavily, he shoved them into the pack before closing it, and walking over to Naruto. After a few moments of contemplating, the boy before him let out a loud snore before rolling over onto his stomach with his bottom up the air. What an idiot, he obviously isn't waking up anytime soon. Humpho, well, it's your own fault, Naruto. With that thought, the man rolled the boy over before picking him up and placing him over his shoulder carefully. Once he had set everything to sit comfortably, he walked out of the apartment, locking the door behind him. After gleefully walking through the now busy streets of Konoha, the Hatake finally reached his destination of the front gates and his awaiting team and client, all of whom were staring at him in question due to the person on his shoulder. Don't worry about Naruto, at least he's here to start the mission. The Hatake started to walk through the gates before looking back at everyone. Well, what are you waiting for? A formal invitation? After what felt like an hour of walking, but was really only half, Naruto started shifting in his sleep, causing the Hatake to stop walking and place the boy down on the ground. He signaled to everyone else to stop as well. The boy remained asleep and completely unaware of his audience. He started twitching. After a moment, an inhumane growl escaped his throat, shocking his team, and then the twitches became more violent before his eyes snapped open and he sat up, arms instantly moving over his body as if checking for fatalities. When his breathing settled back down, the boy became tense, eyes widening once he realized where he was, or more so where he wasn't. Good morning, Naruto. Would you care for some breakfast? Because unfortunately we don't have any due to us being on a mission, unless if you want a ration bar. I'm not getting one out of my pack, so if you want you can have this one. The bright blue eyes looked up to the owner of the voice, shock evident on his face. He didn't even register the ration bar being held out to him. Well, I wouldn't eat it either. I think it's been in my vest for a few years, probably more. Say sensei, did you go into my apartment? His voice became slightly higher at the end, and after receiving a nod he continued in a low whisper. But that's impossible, you should be noticing the funny looks he was getting. He stood up and turned to his sensei. Where are my clothes? And my scrolls? Here. The scarecrow stated while pointing to a ratted bag over his shoulder. But that's not my bag, I had scrolls prepared. There were 2 of them sitting on the floor by the door. Oh no. Please tell me the scrolls are in there. The boy rushed forward, grabbing the bag, ripping it open, pulling all the contents out before he stopped still with a frown on his face. It was almost as if he was listening to something before turning back to their sensei, sighing. I'm sorry for not being up on time, sensei. I should be grateful you grabbed stuff for me. The older man ruffled his hair, telling him to put some clothes on. Nodding, the smaller boy turned to the others. Well, turn around, which they didn't, although Sakura looked extremely awkward. Fine then, and at that he took off his hat, with a pout, causing his blonde hair to go insane and completely untamed, making everyone wonder how does he tame it, because it never looked that messy during the day. The poor boy then proceeded to pull on a white t-shirt with the Uzumaki swirl on the back, and after giving everyone a funny look he pulled orange shorts out of the bag and swapped them to take the place of his ramen pajama pants. After pulling on some shoes he turned to look at his sensei. You suck, sensei, you realize these clothes are from when I was 8, right? At that the older man just smiled and ruffled his hair. Naruto pouted again, proving in way he was just as mature as an 8-year-old as well. Alright everyone, let's continue. Naruto, you're such a baka. I mean, who even fits into their clothes from when they were 8? Even then surely you would buy new clothes, you're so gross. The blonde boy decided to ignore the words and continue on in silence, while the pink-haired girl huffed and walked away from being ignored. They had been walking as a group for just over an hour when they passed a small puddle. Not many would think twice about it, but after taking into account that it hadn't rained in just over a week here and that nothing else was damp, something was wrong. Kakashi discreetly signaled for his team to move into a simple formation to protect Tazuna. 2 of the genin moved, but 1 remained silent, walking separately to the others. Kakashi sighed as he saw movement out of the corner of his eye. There were 2 hulking figures in the tree, and by the looks of their builds they were not just bandits. The figures looked at each other and darted forward. It was then that a chain connecting them became visible. The 2 ran, wrapping themselves around the Jounin, pulling the chain, tearing him into 2, effectively scaring the 2 genin and client into shock. The 2 beasts moved their gaze to Sasuke, who had snapped instantly out of the shock, encouraging Sakura to pull out a kunai and stand in front of Tazuna while Sasuke moved, ready to fight. The 2 attackers moved towards Sasuke at an alarming pace, and one of the 2 raised his weapon while the other one suddenly halted, grabbing onto the thick chain effectively. Swinging his teammate around to take Sasuke and Sakura out with 1 strike, Sasuke stood his ground, not knowing what to expect when the movement stopped after a sudden yellow flash. Eh? Gozu, what are you doing, you idiot? The one now identified as Gozu turned to look at the other. Meizu, look out. It was too late. Meizu dropped to the ground, causing their chain line to go slack. Behind him stood none other than the Jounin Hatake Kakashi. Chapter 3. Meizu, look out. It was too late. Meizu dropped to the ground, causing their chain line to go slack. Behind him stood none other than the Jounin Hatake Kakashi. He wasted no time in knocking Gozu out before tying both of them up with their own chain to a tree. Naruto, get up off the ground. Tazuna, I believe we need to talk. His voice became quite serious as he addressed the elder man. Those 2 weren't just bandits, you see, they were Chunin-level missing nin from Kirigakure. The demon brothers Gozu and Meizu. Now, why someone like them be after a humble bridge builder? Are we? Well, you see, I haven't been completely honest with you, you see. My village, we can't afford much, and a C rank was the best we could do. Most of our money is going towards the bridge into Tagato. It was necessary to lie, Hatake-san. Please, my village needs this. The conversation was interrupted by a pained moan. All attention was directed towards the source, Naruto, who was still curled up on the ground. Dobe, in case you haven't noticed, our sensei and our client are having a very important conversation right now. The Uchiha scoffed as he crossed his arms, waiting for a reply. When he didn't get one other than silence, he walked over to the slumped figure, tapping him gently in the ribs with his foot, with a smirk clear on his face. You're not hurt, are you? Don't touch me. When Sasuke had nudged Naruto, the boy was forced to balance himself by putting his right arm out to the side. What Sasuke hadn't realized was that Naruto had actually been hurt. It hurts so much. Yeah, actually, I did get hurt. His voice was barely audible, but you could hear the pain lacing it quite clearly. That was when Sasuke, along with the others, noticed the blood on his arm and the ground, as well as the metallic smell in the air. Rama, I know you're there. With that thought, the boy let out an inaudible breath. Sasuke stepped back in shock while Kakashi rushed to Naruto's side. Naruto, where exactly is the wound? It was pretty obvious, but he asked it anyway to get some kind of response. Though when he received no answer, the man became agitated. Naruto, this is no time to be playing games. Can you roll onto your side for me? Again there was no answer, and no movement at all. The boy wasn't even breathing. Oh kid, I told you it was reckless, and now look at you. The room was dark and smelt of stale air. The floor was a mix of grays and was uneven, made up of concrete covered in a thin layer of water. There was a small light off to one side of the room, creating a hazy glow illuminating the space, the dim light effectively uncovering a figure standing there. The inhumane voice echoed through the room, reaching the ears of the silhouette, who in turn stepped forward. Rama. As the small voice spoke out, the dim light grew brighter. Rama, I don't know why, but I know, Kit, I saw everything. What are you going to do? The small figure was Naruto. He was in his mindscape, standing before the demon fox herself, Kurama, the Kyubi no Yoko. Looking up at the large cage before him, big blue eyes held unshed tears. Am I going to die? You could, Kit, but that's your choice. If you stay here you will, but if you wake up you will only suffer the consequences of your actions. On the other side of the cage bars a large set of eyes opened, revealing slit crimson eyes. Rama, can't you just heal me? Like all my other injuries? Kit, you've lost your eyes. I can heal flesh and organs with minimal, or no problems, but eyes are more intricate. It's like your brain. Even if I was to heal them, they wouldn't be back 100%. You would lose your eye color, and they'd be plain white like a Hyuga's, but obviously without the Byakugan. Kit, everything you see would still be blurry. But I would see. It would eventually get you killed. The boy slumped. So either I stay here and die, or go back and stay completely blind, or have you heal my vision to a pathetic attempt? The large fox in the cage started to shrink down in size, shifting shape, morphing into a humanoid shape. Uzumaki, Naruto, are you giving up? The boy didn't look up. I won't let you give up, young man. You have a long, promising life ahead of you, and if you give up now just because you jumped in to protect the Uchiha, then, honestly, I regret saying you were worthy of being my host. Those words got the boy's attention. His head snapped up, eyes full of shock. Naruto walked forward before opening his mouth to speak. Rama, I don't want it to come to that. I have had 3 Uzumakis as my hosts, and so far you are the most interesting. Naruto, Kit, I can help you one other way, but I need your full permission. Kit, I need to leave your body. That alone will kill you. You will die, but you will come back. What do you mean? How will that help me? Kit, shut up. It will help you because I will return to your body. Not through a seal, not by force but with both of our consent. Kid, if I do this I won't just be a demon encaged inside you. I will be the demon within you. The pair fell into silence before the blonde Jinchuriki looked up and met the demon's eyes. What do I do? Put some chakra into the seal and wake up. Leave the rest to me. Kakashi rushed to Naruto's side. Naruto, where exactly is the wound? It was pretty obvious but he asked it anyway to get some kind of response. Although when he received no answer the man became agitated. Naruto, this is no time to be playing games, can you roll onto your side for me? Again there was no answer, and no movement at all. The boy wasn't even breathing. The man instantly started applying the basic first aid knowledge he knew on the boy. Rolling him onto his back, straightening him out, the Hataki checked his airway and rechecked his pulse before starting chest compressions. He motioned for his other two students to come over. Sasuke, can you take over? Sasuke hesitated before taking over. Kakashi proceeded and taking a scroll out of his vest. Unsealing it, he took out a pack of sterilized cloths and an antiseptic concoction. After preparing everything, the man started wiping away the blood on the boy's face and gently put a patch swab over his eyes and nose. The sight was disturbing. There was blood everywhere. It was all over the ground, on the boy caking his hair. It also made its way onto Sasuke and Kakashi's hands and clothing. Sakura, can you pass me the bandage, gauze and water? She was hesitant at first but quickly got to work. Kakashi wet the boy's hair, removing some of the blood. Sasuke, how is it going? Sensei, I don't think it's working. I've checked pulse but it's not coming back. The man's visible eye reflected what was heard in the boy's voice. Worry. Well, we will wrap the wound up and I will take over for you. After expertly wrapping the bandage around the boy's head, the Hataki continued with the CPR, pushing past his point of exhaustion. The two genin sat to the side while their sensei tried so hard, never giving up. Hataki-san, Naruto has been out for over half an hour. I don't think continuing will change anything. I can't let him go. Okami, what have I done? Please give him back to me. The man looked distraught. His visible eye conveyed so many emotions it was hard to pick just one. His arms were covered in blood and he had sweat on his brow. Kakashi slumped back before taking another scroll out of his vest. Instead of medical items this time it was a cloak. Minato-sensei, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Naru. I should have been there for you as a child. I was meant to be your brother. He let out a broken sob. He didn't care that his team could hear him. Naruto, if I could give you my life to bring you back I would. You may never forgive me, but I'm sorry. With those words he pulled the cloak up, covering the small boy's body, covering his face with his hands. There was no sounds but you could tell he was crying. Tazuna's face crumpled up with regret. This is my fault. I shouldn't have agreed for the genin team. I was selfish and greedy. Sasuke was on his knees looking torn. No longer was his face scowling. No longer was he thinking about Naruto being a dobe. He felt as though he lost family all over again. Sakura looked as though she was going to throw up. She had a few tears running slowly down her cheeks from her sensei's words. She looked down at Naruto's blood on her hands, now knowing what she had to do for her future. Sakura couldn't let another death happen, and that was when the cloak moved. It was only slightly, but it raised up and then sunk back down. Sasuke was the one who saw it first. Sensei, look. The Hataki raised his head slowly to look at what the Uchiha was talking about. His eye was instantly filled with shock. Naruto, can you hear me? The man moved forward, pulling the cloak down before placing his fingers on the boy's neck. There was a faint beat, but it was a pulse nonetheless. The demon smiled sadly as the blonde Jinchuriki vanished before the cage bars. The boy didn't know that his team had tried to resuscitate him, and that they all mourned his death. Kurama started molding the chakra the boy left on the seal, making it glow and shift around. It did this for a few minutes before becoming a blindingly bright light before disappearing. The seal that was now on the bars had changed so that the Kyuubi could leave, but leaving was at a cost. It meant the boy's life. It was a disturbing notion thinking about it, but with the plan that the two had made it wouldn't matter in the end because Kurama would return to the boy by merging with him. Kurama hadn't told the Uzumaki, but once the merging was complete the demon would have the ability to leave his body as they pleased. Although that came with a cost to Kyuubi herself. The demon's chakra would stay in the boy's body but be able to be used by both of them. This also meant that if the demon wandered too far from the Uzumaki she would be teleported back into him. The beast waited a few more minutes in the cage as if waiting for someone or something. She got what she was waiting for. Standing in the place where the young blonde had been not too long ago was now standing a very similar man, almost like a grown-up version of the blonde boy. The man standing there was the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato, the man who sealed the beast in here 12 years ago. Namikaze, what a pleasure. Before you go to fix the seal, don't waste your time. Your kid willingly placed the chakra on the seal to open it. Seeing the man's shocked expression, the demon started to explain, Minato, your son has been severely injured in combat. He was struck in the face by a poisoned blade causing severe lacerations, rendering his eyes useless and beyond any chance of repair. He jumped in to stop an attack on his fellow team member, an Uchiha. We spoke about what will happen and he agreed. He released chakra into seal because I'm going to leave. But that will kill him, does he know that? The man's stance was stern and unforgiving. If he deemed fit he was ready to reseal the Kyuubi, putting him away for good. He'd much rather the Kyuubi stay locked away than having them risk it playing with Naruto's mind. I know it will, and he knows it will as well. He has already died today, Namikaze. He had a decision to make. Either remain here in his mindscape and we both die, but he instantly dismissed that. I could heal him to the extent of having a pathetic excuse of vision which could cause his death later, or he could go back and stay blind. The last option was that he could release me and die just to come back to life due to me merging with him. The man went to speak again before the QB cut him off. Before you speak again, Namikaze, I know of your predicament, and that is why I offer you a body. He isn't going to be able to come to his mindscape now or for quite some time after this happens. He is too weak. In fact, if he was to come here he would become comatose. Therefore I offer you a body to come into the world with me. You can still speak to him then. What happened to you, QB? What happened to the demon that picked up on negative emotions? The blonde man fell into silence before speaking again. Is that what you did? Took advantage of his weak state? Are you playing with him? How dare you! I will seal you back up with all I have, you demon. Kurama looked down at him. I'm sorry, but I can't let you do that. What happened to me, you ask? I was sealed into one of the most amazing humans I have ever met. He was and still is misunderstood but has the abilities to lock away the negative emotions he gets from others into a place where I can hardly touch them. Even if I could, I believe that he is strong enough to avoid its pull. I have offered myself to him so that he may gain back his sight. I'm ready to offer myself, willingly, to a mere mortal. There is one thing I didn't tell him, though. He is under the impression that by me merging with him all he is going to get is my sight. The beast let out what could be passed as a giggle. Namikaze, do you know what will happen? Well, you'd be merging with him, he'd gain all of your heightened senses, and I don't know, but I'm assuming that if your chakra is going to be in him directly instead of just being in a seal, his body would need to adjust. Yes, that is true. He will get all my senses, and yes, his body may change, but even I'm not too sure about how that will turn out. What concerns me the most is something else, Namikaze. Do you know what gender I am? The blonde's eyes widened as he looked up at the demon. The demon proceeded to smirk before once again shrinking down in size, changing shape. After a minute there stood a beautiful female with blood-red hair with black undertones. Her face looked as though it had been carved carefully by the gods themselves. The woman let out a foxy grin showing off sharp canines. Her eyes glowed with happiness. Namikaze, I can manage to create a clone for you to use until the merge is complete. When I leave I'll take you with me, but you will not be able to return. I will wake him up, but you will have to wait a moment until everything wears off. Do not worry about who else is around, Namikaze, otherwise you will lose your chance to say what you want. The large gates opened as she held out her hand. Take my hands, Namikaze. Kakashi was in hysterics. He didn't believe what had happened. None of them did. One moment the boy had been clinically dead, and they had done everything they could without the knowledge of medical jutsu to save him, and then when they finally couldn't do anything more up, the boy started to breathe. With no help. Nothing at all. It was like fate was playing games and Naruto had a royal flush against the Shinigami's low hand. Naruto's chest was now rising and falling in a steady pace, and his heartbeat was returning to normal. Now knowing that the boy was fine, the Hatake moved over to his next priority. The demon brothers. When Kakashi had taken them out he only rendered them into unconsciousness, and now that the group was settled he had decided it would be best to put them into an induced coma, and seal them away to take back to Konoha. Sasuke, Sakura, keep an eye on Naruto and Tazuna. We don't want to drop our guard any more than what we already have. The two students stood moving into a position where they could keep an eye on Naruto while standing guard over both him and the client. While they did that, their sensei gathered chakra into his fingertips before hitting a pressure point on Meizu. As soon as his fingers touched, a jolt was sent through the Chunin's body before his head slumped. Gathering chakra in his fingertips once more, he repeated the action on Gozu. After he was finished with Gozu, he pulled out a scroll and quickly set to work on sealing them away. Once he finished the tedious task, he stood up straight, dusting invisible dirt off himself before walking back over to the group. It had been several minutes since Naruto had started breathing again when a small sound escaped his lips. It was silent and the group only just heard it, but he had said, hand. Hatake-san, do you think he wants your hand or is he dreaming? The bridge builder spoke up, crossing his arms, looking strangely at the boy on the ground, faltering and noticing he had stopped breathing once again. Nah, we probably didn't even hear it right. The silver-haired man looked up at the sky. It was just past midday. I think we should probably start moving if we want to make it to your home before dark, Tazuna. Ah, so, we're continuing? But what about the boy's health? We can let him rest when we are there. I'm just hoping we don't run into any more trouble. As the two were conversing, they had turned their backs on the three genin. Sasuke and Sakura, who were also intrigued by the fact they were continuing, didn't take note of Naruto. All four of them failed to notice the chakra that was forming around him at his stomach. That was until the chakra became foul. Noticing the sensation, Kakashi stopped talking, turning around slowly, causing the others to do so too. What they saw shocked them. The boy was covered all over in two different colored chakras, blue and red. Suddenly a clone popped to life next to him, and the blue chakra seeped into it before the clone started to slowly shift in appearance. The red chakra kept sleeping out of Naruto's stomach, get thicker and thicker until it was bubbling like lava. When it started to shift and take form, Kakashi finally spoke up and told everyone to get back and be prepared for anything. The red chakra started compacting itself upwards until it reached around what would equal to 6 foot in height. Once it reached that point, shape started to become more obvious on what could be classed as a figure. The bottom of it started splitting to about halfway, taking a solid shape, with skin forming around it. Above the legs formed quite prominent curves. It soon became quite obvious what it was. It was the shape of a female. A woman. She raised her head as it too became solidified, flicking it back, sending chakra out, forming hair. It reached down to her bottom and stayed the color of the chakra. The blue chakra had finished sleeping into the clone, which had now taken on its new form. The boy's clone now resembled a man. His hair had grown and his clothing had changed. He looked up at the group standing by with a sad look in his eye. It was when his eye met Kakashi's. Did anything else happen? Sensei? As the word left his lips, the two genin broke out of their trance, and shock appeared on their face when they saw a familiar man kneeling over their teammate. The women gave them no notice as she turned to the Namikaze. You ready? Her voice was dark, very unfitting of her beautiful appearance. The late Hokage caught her eye and nodded once, and almost instantly the female leant towards Naruto. Demonic mutterings broke the silence, and the woman placed her hands on either side of Naruto's head, making him face her. The red chakra, once again starting seeping out, this time creating runes on the ground around them in a circle. Sasuke and Sakura, unsure of what was happening, had taken extra steps back, dropping their kunai where they had once been. Kakashi had been frozen into shock, not sure what to do, while Tazuna had taken full effect of the exposure to chakra and had long since fainted. As the chakra markings expanded and took shape, the woman's muttering got louder and louder before coming to an abrupt stop. The markings on the ground sparked and burnt from the outside ring and towards the center. As the flames hit Naruto's body, both he and the woman burst into flames. Naruto panicked. Everything was black. He couldn't feel the beating of his heart, or the rise and fall of his chest. In the back of his mind he could remember the last he had felt this was when he met Kurama. It had been a horrible experience, and he had feared so many people after it. But if it hadn't happened, he wouldn't have gained a family member, and he wouldn't have learned anywhere near as much as he had. Flashback. The date was October 10th, and everyone was outside celebrating. Today was the day marking the 5th-year anniversary of the day that the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato, had defeated the Kyuubi no Yoko. All the civilians had closed their shops and moved their vendors to the open grounds near the Hokage monument, where most of the celebration took place. Civilians and ninja alike had the opportunity to celebrate. Many kinds of sake had been stocked over the past months, and many varieties of foods were available in large quantities. Buntings, streamers and lanterns were hanging all over the buildings, and the whole town was colorful. Kids were running around playing while everyone was laughing and smiling. The academy and civilian schools had been let off early for the day with the words to go and enjoy themselves with friends and family. Parents allowed their children to roam free. During the day, civilians were allowed to leave the village for an annual fox hunting expedition. There were even ninja that joined in. All ninja off active duty were in casual clothing. Even the ninja that were on duty had the liberty of kicking back. Missions had been paused for the day, meaning that genin didn't have to go on D ranks, and the only people on active work were ANBU guards and the gatekeepers. There was also people in the hospital and Hokage Tower. When nighttime hit, children had been put to bed and many of the adults had been drunk for hours already with no plan to sober up until they had to. When the clock struck 11 p.m., people managed to mentally sober up to the point of knowing what they were doing. As it had been every year, there was a group of civilians and ninja of every rank that gathered together with a plan. Their plan was always the same, but they never accomplished it. They believed they were doing the correct thing. All they wanted to do was finish off the Yondaime's job and kill the demon instead of just defeating it. It was always by the action of the Sandaime Hokage, who had been reinstated after the Yondaime's death. The old Hokage always made sure of removing the victim from the village for the span of 3 days, the 9th through to the 11th, which also meant the Hokage left the village for a while during the celebration. This year was no different. Naruto left the village on the 9th to stay away from the village, only to be visited on the 10th by the Hokage and a very select few for his birthday, just to return on the 11th when all the fuss was over. At least that was the plan. Inu-san, can I see the town? Bright blue eyes started at the ANBU. They were currently standing in the garden of the Fire Daimyo and his wife Madame Shijimi's estate. In the distance a glow could be seen giving away the location of Konoha. Naruto, don't you want to stay here and celebrate your birthday with everyone? Behind the dog mask was a young man. He wore the standard ANBU uniform, which consisted of a simple blue suit with a gray flak jacket, strapped-up sandals, and arm guards. Along with this he wore plated gloves that went all the way up to his arms with a bandage wrapped around the right one, with his ANBU tattoo on his left bicep. Along with this he carried a sword strapped to his back, and his mask was fashioned to resemble a dog's face with red and black markings around the eyes, sides and mouth. Hence his name being Inu. Why don't we go join the daimyo in this celebration? The young blonde sighed before following the ANBU over to the group of people. He was happy around them. They didn't look at him funny, but he wanted to go back to the village. Just this once he wanted to see how they celebrated. He got what he wanted. While his ANBU guard was talking to Madame Shijimi, Naruto slipped away from the group unnoticed. The boy ran off as fast as he could after spreading his scent everywhere back at the estate. He knew that he only had a certain amount of time before the ANBU tracked him down. He knew it had taken half an hour to travel on the back of the ANBU, so he would make it home in an hour. It wasn't much time, but he knew he could do it. After all, Inu-san was lazy. It wasn't long before the young boy wished he hadn't returned to the village. He wished he knew why the villagers looked at him like that. It truly frightened him. Why hadn't those at the daimyos looked at him like that? Why was everyone here hurting him? Some threw things and some hit him. The pain was horrible. Where was Gigi? Where was Inu? And who did those crimson eyes belong to? End flashback. Naruto wake up. As the chakra markings expanded and took shape, the woman's muttering got louder and louder before coming to an abrupt stop. The markings on the ground sparked and burnt from the outside ring and towards the center. As the flames hit Naruto's body, both he and the woman burst into flames. Panic flashed through the eyes of the man next to them before it disappeared, and he quickly checked over Naruto the best he could without touching before standing up. The eyes of Team 7 following his movements as he rose up. In front of them was a tall, tan man. He had bright blue eyes and spiky blonde hair. He also had jaw-length bangs framing either side of his face and high tie-it on his forehead. The man's attire was a standard Konoha Jounin uniform with 2 bands on each of his sleeves, a leaf green flak jacket, and blue sandals. Over that, and what grabbed the genin's attention the most, was a short-sleeved, long white haori decorated by orange flames on the edges with the obvious kanji for 4th Hokage written vertically down the back. Everyone in Konoha knew who he was. Standing in front of Team 7 was the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato. Even though Kakashi had known who it was since the clone had first transformed, he had still checked the man's chakra with his Sharingan out of concern and paranoia. Hello Kashi-kun, I'd love to talk but I'm not here for you. Hearing his voice again pulled at Kakashi's heartstrings more than either would have thought. Minato moved his gaze back towards the boy on the ground, worry painted clearly in his eyes. Naruto was still covered in a layer of the flaming chakra, but it was gradually thinning out. With it went parts of the boy's clothing and the bandages. What concerned them the most was that his body was twitching and thrashing in terrifying ways. As the group continued to watch the boy, he opened his mouth in a silent scream, and then the sound of breaking bones took over the clearing, causing them all to wince. Sakura had turned her head, unable to watch the agony on her teammate's face. Sensei, what's happening? What is this? Kakashi couldn't bring himself to reply and instead just shook his head. He didn't know what was happening, and it honestly scared him. Before their eyes his figure stretched by about a foot, and his waistline thinned slightly. His hair also started to grow, quickly surpassing the length of the Yondaime's before it started piling up onto itself like a halo while changing color. It went from bright blonde to being blood red at the roots. These were not the only changes. What grabbed their attention the most was that the bone and tissue around his eyes was healing at an alarming rate, and everyone could only stand and watch as Naruto's facial features became more defined and rather elegant. Before anyone could think too far into his appearance, Naruto broke into a blood-curtailing scream as new eyes formed within the sockets. Gone was all the dead tissue, and in its place was a pair of crimson eyes. The only trace of his previous injury was a nasty scar running from one ear to the other, going over his eyes and nose. The last of the chakra started to seep into his skin as Minato crouched down. Naruto, can you hear me? Naruto, wake up. The boy on the ground let out a gasp as he nodded awkwardly. Do you know who I am? Another nod. You probably just thought that I was the Yondaime. Well, yes I am, but that's not what I meant. Naruto, you hold a place in my heart that nobody could ever replace. I'm not really here right now, I'm just a chakra member using a clone. Naruto, I wanted to say that I'm proud of you and that you should never forget that. He let out a small chuckle. You know, when your name was chosen, your mother insisted it was after the ramen ingredient. I told her that I wanted it to be after the hero in Jiraiya-sensei's novel The Tale of Gutsy Ninja. In the end we agreed to disagree. But either way, it's Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. The boy's eyes widened and tried to move his arm towards who was now identified as his father. Minato moved to Naruto's side and knelt down next to him. Grabbing his hand, he continued. Naruto, I assume that you already know what happened 12 years ago. Well, I need to tell you anyway that the Kyuubi didn't die but was instead sealed away into you. And I know you already know that. I'm just verifying. I guess, Naruto, you don't have all of Kurama. You are not the only Jinchuriki for Kurama. You have the Yan half and I have the In. Otosen. Naruto, I want you to work alongside the Kyuubi. I know you already have made a brotherly and sisterly relationship between you, but please, I want you to become Otosen. I know you don't have to tell me. Naruto, my boy, when you return to the leaf you tell the old man Hokage that you want your heritage. You now know who your father is. Your Okasan was the last Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi. She was a beautiful woman. As funny as it is to say this, but you have her eye shape and you had my color. Your mother was told that love was the only way to tame the Nine Tails and overcome its hate. She was told that by the Jinchuriki before her Mito Uzumaki, but neither of them succeeded. You, on the other hand, have. Your mother was well known in the village, and it surprises me no one made the connection between the three of us. Uzumaki Kushina, the red-hot-blooded habanero. Never call her tomato, though. I'm sorry for not being there for you, Naru. I'm sure your mother looks down upon you as your guardian angel as well. We both loved you dearly. They fell into a comfortable silence for a moment before the Yondaime felt himself weakening. Naruto, I don't have much time left. I always looked up to you, you know. His voice was quiet and weak, but it carried through the clearing. I still do, even more so now that I know you're my Otosen. He paused, taking a shaky breath before continuing. Okasan sounds beautiful as well. I will definitely look more into her and pester Gigi more than I do now about you both. I want you to know that I love you and forgive you for not being there. I wasn't alone. I had Gigi and Inu and I over there. I also had Tuchi and Ayam at Ichiraku. I also had Ruka-sensei and Rama. I don't plan on letting any of them go. As Naruto was talking, his father started crying. He moved forward and pulled his son into a hug. Naruto, I will never leave your side. I love you, my son, and I'm so proud of you. You have a big heart, and an even bigger soul. He pulled back, staring into his son's eyes before smiling. The 4 people standing off to the side had seen and heard everything. The bridge builder had woken up not long ago and had seen the interaction. Sakura was silently crying. Despite what everyone thought, she didn't hate Naruto as much as what she let on, and her heart was tugged by this. Although deep inside a part of her didn't want to believe it, and wanted to only take note of the QB being inside him. Sasuke, on the other hand, was shocked. He would never have thought that the Dobe would have such well-known, intelligent, and powerful parents. Although as a fellow orphan he felt troubled for the boy to find out who his parents were, to only have them gone again. Kakashi took the whole scene straight to heart. Seeing his sensei and secondly father figure standing there, he couldn't help but feel ashamed of himself. He should have been there more for Naruto, but after the incident on the boy's 5th birthday he had pushed himself away from the boy. It was almost as if Minato knew what he was thinking, because just before he was out of chakra he looked towards Kakashi and smiled. Also, Naruto, make sure you look after your older brother, he needs you more than he likes to admit. Minato then leant forward and left a small kiss on Naruto's forehead before a pop was heard, leaving no trace of being there. The last words of his sensei was all that was running through his mind. He needs you more than he likes to admit. It was true. Kakashi knew it was true, but just as his sensei meant, he'd never say it out loud. He was honestly glad his sensei had said it. He just hoped he could be forgiven. When Kakashi had been told he was going to be the boy's sensei, he was prepared to fail the team just so he didn't have to be close to the boy he had once considered a brother. He hadn't wanted the boy to recognize him as who he used to be, but it seems he had anyway. But Naruto hadn't seemed to care. Instead, he pushed Kakashi to step up and be the teacher he should have been from the beginning. The ANBU captain and Naruto's bodyguard Inu was gone, and in his place was Hatake Kakashi, leader of Team 7. He quickly ordered his 2 other genin to help Naruto up before quickly performing a jutsu. Kuchiyos no Jutsu. A small cloud of smoke appeared and a Nikken appeared, but before it could speak Kakashi interrupted, showing how dire the situation was. Before the spoke, Kakashi placed TW scrolls into the pug's jacket. Pakin, I need you to run as fast as you can to Hokage-sama and request the Suma's team. Those scrolls were the Chunin we fought. Return with them at full speed. Looking around, the pug took as much of the scene in before he disappeared into the distance. As Kakashi stood and turned back to the group to saw that Naruto was now standing with the help of Sasuke and Sakura. But, with as weary as they were, they tried to do it as far from him as possible, making the sight rather cringe-worthy. Nay, I think I'm going to throw up. Everyone stepped away instantly, including his 2 supports. Naruto fell to his hands and knees. He looked up at them, his expression distraught. Well, it's nice to know you all care so much, and for your information, the feeling is gone. Everyone let out a breath they had been holding. It was then Naruto noticed all the hair around him. What the? He picked up the long strands, staring at them in shock. If my hair has changed, I wonder what else has. Kakashi walked forwards and crouched down in front of the boy. Looking over his shoulder, he smiled and said, It's alright, Naruto, we will figure everything out soon. Now hurry up and get on. We do still have to make it to Tazuna's. Naruto managed to stand up on his own before stumbling and falling onto Kakashi's back. The man simply adjusted him around so they were both comfortable and proceeded to stand. Naruto just wrapped his arms around his sensei's neck, smiling. Flashback. Running through the streets of Konoha and jumping to and from buildings was a silver-haired ANBU. On the ANBU's back was a small blonde-haired child, whose face expressed only pure happiness. Under the ANBU's mask a similar expression was set, but that went unknown to the bystanders. End flashback. Alright, let's move on. We've lost a lot of time thanks to this unpredictable knucklehead. Despite his words, he purposely took off at a walking pace, deliberately buying time for the backup. Kakashi also had plans to use this time to answer his suspicions raised by the attack from the Chunin, and once again asked Tazuna for the truth about the circumstances of the mission. As they walked to the town, Tazuna explained to them that the Land of Waves had been taken over by a shipping magnate called Gato, who had effectively bankrupted all the people of the country, forcing them to depend on him. He also told them that the only way to revitalize the economy was by building a bridge to the mainland that could render Gato's shipping company useless. Because of this, Gato did not want that to happen. So in means of stopping the bridge from being finished, he used shinobi and bandit gangs to keep his control. As you can see, if I was to be killed, the villagers would lose all hope and stop construction on the bridge. While listening to the story, Kakashi's mind kept wandering back to the, now snoozing, lump on his back. He couldn't help but shake off the funny feeling that there was more to Naruto that changed than just what they had seen. They still didn't even know what had happened, and Kakashi was guessing Naruto didn't either, or if he did know, he wasn't saying anything. When they reached the water separating Nami no Kuni to Hai no Kuni, they met with a cranky old man running a small fishing shack. Tazuna stepped forward to negotiate crossing but was told they needed to wait until the fog covered the waters more to be able to cross undetected, so the group settled down and had a break. Naruto fell back to sleep not long after Kakashi had placed him down, and the others all shared rations and water. Tazuna just drank his sake. It had taken a good hour for the fellow to return with a small boat, only just big enough to fit them all. Kakashi helped his students and client onto the boat before quickly stretching his senses. In the near distance he could feel the familiar chakras of his comrades and his team. With a small smirk he climbed into the boat and sat down. They traveled in silence, taking cover in the mist that they had been waiting for. When they finally came to what had been built of the bridge so far, their silence was broken. Naruto couldn't stop his shock from reaching his voice. "Shut up. Why do you think we're traveling in silence, brat? We don't want to get caught." The man who had hired the boat hissed at the boy, effectively shutting him up but not silencing his, or anyone else's, thoughts. Once they hit the shore, the owner of the boat hardly waited for them to get off and grabbed their packs before hitting the waters again. How bad was it here from Gato that everyone was like that? "Alright Naruto, hurry up and jump on. I don't want to take any risks after what happened, and with how much you've been sleeping since." No argument came from the boy's mouth, so Kakashi once again crouched down in front of him. The group continued on towards Tazuna's house, only stopping when Naruto shifted on Kakashi's back and sent a kunai into a nearby bush. After effectively surprising everyone and putting them on even higher guard, he was yelled at by Sakura when it proved to be nothing. Instead of listening to Sakura though, Naruto threw another kunai into a different bush on the opposite side of the path. This time though, instead of yelling, Sakura just called him an idiot. "But I swear there is something here. I don't know, I can just sense it." As the words left his mouth, a rabbit came out of the bush, scared half to death. Seeing what it was, Sakura instantly rushed forwards, apologizing profusely to the rabbit for her teammates' idiotic actions. As all attention was on her, Kakashi noticed something strange about the rabbit. Its fur was white. After hugging the rabbit back to health, Sakura placed it down as Naruto halted on their sensei's back. "Hold on sensei, this rabbit is white. It's a snow rabbit. Snow rabbits are only white during winter, it isn't winter." Naruto had come to the same realization as Kakashi had moments ago. "Everyone get down." Hiruzen was sitting behind his large wooden desk, silently eyeing off all his hidden ANBU guards. While he hated paperwork with a passion, he could safely say he was glad he didn't have to stand still for hours watching some old guy push papers. He let out a dry cough as he corrected his thoughts. Not that I'm old. Before he could pick up another slip of paper, he heard a small commotion on the other side of his door. As he looked up, a scratching sound was heard and Hiruzen signaled for the closest ANBU to open the door. Instantly a small dog sped and quickly identified as Pakken, Kakashi's most trusted Niken. "Pakken, what's happened?" "Hokage-sama, I am here on behalf of Kakashi with an urgent request for backup. Especially Asuma-san and his team." Hiruzen instantly understood the level of importance behind the request, considering the pug didn't mention his paw once, and order an ANBU to find and bring his son and his genin squad to him. It wasn't long before Asuma pulled open the door. His eyes quickly took in the scene before him, taking a long drag from his cigarette. Behind him, Shikamaru was looking half asleep, eyeing off the pug who was now sitting on the Hokage's desk like he owned it. "Hokage-sama, what's wrong?" "Pakken, please explain." Ino turned her attention to the kind of cute puppy, and with a little smile on her face she stepped forward to be in line with her other team members. "Kakashi summoned me and gave me strict orders to run here as fast as I could, request Asuma and his team, and then catch up with them as quickly as we can." He looked at each the genin, slightly put off by the third. The way the boy was looking at him like a piece of food made him want to reverse summon himself. "I don't know everything, but Naruto was on the ground." Well, I think it was Naruto had red and blonde hair though and wasn't as scrawny anyway. They encountered Chunin. He pointed to his vest and Hiruzen took out 2 scrolls. "Send these 2 to Ibiki." It wasn't long before the team set off towards the gates. Once there, they did a quick check on materials before Asuma signaled to depart. The 3 genin kept up to Asuma and Pakken's pace, all worrying what they would encounter. As time went on, their pace slowed and soon they stopped in a small clearing. Even though some of the scene had been cleaned up, there was obvious signs of a fight, and in the dirt was char marks. "This is where Kakashi summoned me." Pakken quickly set to work tamaracking where the team had gone before signaling to leave again. As they took off, the question on everyone's mind was where was Team 7 now, and what were they about to encounter? Naruto had come to the same realization as Kakashi had moments ago. "Everyone get down!" Kakashi barked the orders as he himself dropped to ground, Naruto having no choice but to follow him down. As they hit the ground, Kakashi told Naruto to let go and roll away. Above their heads a large blade swung and cut into a nearby tree. As they looked, a large beast of a man landed on the blade's handle. His lower face was bandaged, but his forehead protector clearly showed he was a Kiri missing nin. Momochi Zabuza, the demon of the mist. Kakashi stood up as he spoke, signaling for the genin to get into formation to protect Tazuna. "Hatake Kakashi, the copycat ninja, the man who has copied over 1,000 jutsu. I look forward to killing you." At Zabuza's words, Kakashi pulled up his Hitaiite, revealing the Sharingan. "Ah, so I am worthy enough to see the Sharingan?" Hearing Zabuza mention the Sharingan, Sasuke tensed. "That is my clan's. What is Sensei doing with it in one eye?" "What the heck is Sharingan?" Naruto muttered. "The Sharingan is the Dojutsu Kekkai Genkai of the Uchiha clan. It holds the ability to read any genjutsu and ninjutsu, as well as chakra depending on which level you have. There is much more to the Sharingan too." Sasuke spoke up, sounding rather proud of his clan's Kekkai Genkai. "You only scratch the surface of a kid. It can also analyze a person's technique and copy it, hence why your sensei here has the name of a copycat. Even got him into our bingo book. Now enough talking, it's time to finish this." Zabuza jumped back, effectively pulling the sword from the tree. Hidden mist jutsu. A thick mist appeared before blocking their vision and doing its task of hiding its creator. "Sensei?" The panic was clear in Sakura's voice. Sakura, relax. If anything, he will come for me. Before Kakashi could finish, Zabuza cut him off. 8 points. Sensei? Sakura, focus. This is the silent killing technique. Zabuza is a master of it. The way Kakashi spoke was as if he was calming a small child, not telling everyone there was an assassin seconds away. Larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, heart, kidneys and subclavian arteries, his voice sounding again. Now which to choose? Naruto started to shake. There was no way he was going to die. Not after everything he just went through. A determined look grew on his face. Sasuke was shaking as well. Looking around, he couldn't see anything. His heart felt like it was about to burst through his ribs. His ears were ringing. It was driving him insane. Sasuke! Calm down. I won't let you guys die. As the words left Kakashi's lips, Zabuza appeared in the circle between the genin. No one had expected Naruto to spin instantly and drive a kunai straight into his chest, but none of them had thought Zabuza would turn to water either. Well, it seems not all your brats are incompetent, are they? I might just let the girl live. Sakura suddenly felt a small presence of hope before her mind caught up to her. Wait, but, hey! Did you just call me a girl? Naruto was fuming. He spun around rapidly but had no luck finding the Rouge Nin again. Zabuza just laughed as he suddenly appeared behind Kakashi, cutting him in half before he too burst into water. What? Did he copy my jutsu? Just as he started growling, he felt a blade on his neck. Now it's over. Sakura couldn't help but cheer for her sensei, only to shriek as another Zabuza appeared behind their sensei, mimicking his capture, as the one behind Kakashi's kunai turned to water. As Kakashi went to escape, Zabuza sent his foot into his back, sending Kakashi flying into a tree. How strong is this guy? Went through the minds of all the genin as I'm good as dead went through Tazuna's. Kakashi made the mistake of trying to mask his next move in the water. As he entered knee-deep, he noticed it didn't feel right. I have you now. Zabuza quickly went through a set of hand signs and Kakashi was lifted from the water in ball of water. It may be made of water, but this prison is stronger than steel. Heh, you're not as strong as you think. Now all I have to do is kill this lot. Zabuza gestured towards the genin and Tazuna, who all froze. You think that headband makes you ninja? You are all weak. It's pathetic to know this is what Konoha is producing. You are all a joke. He created a clone who instantly shot out towards the genin. He kicked out and hit Naruto in the stomach, who went flying back. When he caught himself, he clutched his gut and groaned. Looking around, Naruto stood up, and just as he was about to attempt a counterattack when he froze. Before he knew, his body was walking backwards without him telling it to. What the? See what I mean? The others are all there and mostly fine, but this one looks different. Still think it's Naruto though. Naruto felt the control of his body return, and he instantly turned around to see a small pug and Shikamaru. Eh? What are you guys doing here? Saving your arse by the looks of it. Shikamaru pointed towards their two senseis with a nod of his head. Asuma had appeared by the river and attacked the real Zabuza with his extended chakra blades, forcing the man to release Kakashi from his water prison. In that one action alone, Asuma had gotten his very own cheer squad. Ino and Sakura were standing by Tazuna cheering him on. Tazuna was almost tempted to join in on the cheering. Naruto, Shikamaru and Pakken walked over to the other genin and Tazuna. The 6 genin stood protecting Tazuna while Pakken ran to be closer to the battle in case Kakashi needed him. They all watching in awe as Kakashi copied all of Zabuza's moves, even going to the point of saying his thoughts out loud. Zabuza faltered as his anger grew, and just as he had started a new set of hand signs, Kakashi had already sped through them and a large dragon rose from the water, rushing forwards. It hit Zabuza with such force he was thrown into a tree. How did you? Can you see into the future? Kakashi and Asuma walked over to him as Kakashi answered yes, and your end is near. I can see your death. Before the 2 jounin could attack, 2 Saban flew out, hitting the missing Nin in the neck. Asuma stepped forward to check for a pulse. Finding none, he sent a look to Kakashi and both faced the intruder. Before them was a boy, no older than Naruto, but covering his face was a mask quite similar to Konoha's Anbu. You're right, this was his last battle. Thank you, I have been hunting him for a while. So you must be a hunter Nin from the village hidden in the mist? You are well informed. I've been following him for a little bit, but only now was a good chance to strike. Asuma looked at the boy in front of them, but a panic behind them pulled both his and Kakashi's attention away. Naruto? Naruto! Shikamaru and Sasuke were standing over the boy. Sakura had frozen, panic entering her chest in case something stray happened again. Sensei! I think Naruto has fainted? The 2 men rushed over to check on him to find that he had indeed fainted. Kakashi quickly checked over the boy before he stood to turn back to the hunter Nin to find him gone. Did anyone see them leave? When he only received guilty looks and head shakes, he swore under his breath. Keep an eye out. Asuma, can you put Naruto on? Before he could finish the sentence, his chakra exhaustion caught up with him, and he too fainted. Hey, I guess that's a no. I will carry Kakashi. Slakey, you get the kid. Troublesome. Once they had them on their backs, Asuma spoke up again. Right, Tazuna, was it? We need to get to yours as soon as possible. Which way? Follow me. At that they headed off towards the old man's house. The large group had arrived to Tazuna's house in record time with surprisingly little to no complaints. Along the way Asuma spoke to the man and gained a better understanding of what had happened so far, and what Gato's place was within the town. As Tazuna explained his role in building the bridge, and what it would do for everyone, Asuma agreed with Kakashi's earlier choice of staying by the bridge builder until it was completed. Once they got to Tazuna's home, a 2-story building away from the town overlooking the water, the man ushered them all inside to an average-sized kitchen and meals room and were quickly introduced to his beautiful daughter Tsunami, who in turn fussed over where everyone and where they were going to be staying. She had quickly set to work in the spare bedroom, making up 2 spaces for Kakashi and Naruto to lay before heading back downstairs to start tea. As she moved around the kitchen expertly, she turned to the others, asked if any of them had sleeping packs. Asuma, Shikamaru and Choji had all packed one, but the others had forgotten. Quickly thinking, Tsunami figured out all the bedding in her mind and let them know she would sort the rest out later. A small boy had joined them not long after and was introduced as Tazuna's grandson and Tsunami's son, Inari. As the dinner was being dished out, everyone took their seats. Sakura and Ino were sitting either side of the Uchiha, much to the boys' dislike, while Choji, Shikamaru and Asuma had sat away from the small table to allow the family to fit. Before they started eating, Asuma leant towards Choji and whispered, "Now Choji, don't eat all the food. You have your own and they don't have to share what they have, so don't take all theirs. Understood?" The boy quickly nodded, understanding he could easily eat them out of house and home. Heck, he could probably eat the village if he wanted. They all thanked Tsunami as she served their meals, and before long everyone had settled into silence as they ate. "Thank you, Tsunami. You are a wonderful co." Asuma was cut off by a blood-curdling high-pitched scream. That came from upstairs? Noting that all the women were currently in this room, Asuma quickly stood and hurried up the stairs, not knowing what to expect. Sharing a look, all the genin got up and followed man, some genuinely worried and some just wanted to satisfy their curiosity. Once Asuma got upstairs, he pushed through the door to the room Tsunami had put Kakashi and Naruto in. As he stepped in, he only found Kakashi. "Naruto?" Asuma received no answer, but behind him he could hear slight sounds of movement, then of vomiting in the bathroom. With a focused look on his face, he moved over to the door and muttered before calling out, "What the heck is going on? Naruto? Are you in there?" He could hear shuffling and water running on the other side of the door, but again didn't get a response. "Naruto?" Asuma sent a warning look to all the genin who had caught up to him as he placed a hand on the handle, slowly opening it. "Naruto? It's just me." Asuma, what his eyes widened as he got a look at the figure in the room. Sensei, what's wrong?" Shikamaru had seen the hesitation clear on his sensei's face and stepped forward. "Shikamaru, I don't think you should go in there." Shikamaru blatantly ignored the words of his sensei and pushed past him into the bathroom. "Or not, Naruto?" Before him was a very obvious woman washing her face. She had the same hair as Naruto had just earlier, and even though the figure was turned away, he could see the well-developed figure and a voluptuous chest. Shikamaru sent a pointed look back at his sensei, who just nodded and shut the door. He could hear a small commotion as the jounin sent the others away. Letting out a sigh, he turned back to who he believed was Naruto to see she had moved to sit on the floor and had curled up. Stepping closer, he sat on the ground across from her. "Hey." He sounded so casual despite the situation that Naruto had no choice but to look at him. "Really? All you can say is hey?" Her voice was silky and very sultry without her even meaning it to. "Well, it got you to look at me, didn't it?" She blushed before getting cranky, mumbling away to herself. "I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that." "Good, because it wasn't at you. Naruto, you can't stay in here forever." Kakashi is unconscious at the moment. He overused his Sharingan and got chakra exhaustion, but when he is awake, I will send him for you. Or you could just tell me what's going on now without everyone eavesdropping so? What do you want to do?" Her now crimson eyes caught his, and to say the glare scared him was an understatement. It was definitely worse than his mother's. "Fine. You want to know what happened?" "I don't fucking know. One moment we were attacked by the Chunin, the next I jumped in front of an attack meant for Sasuke. I lost my eyesight and was completely unconscious. Well shit, I don't know if I can tell you or not. Well, oh fuck it, Team 7 knows and you're smart. I'm sure you'll figure it out soon enough anyway." She paused for a moment, as if regaining her thoughts. Looking down at her hands, she continued, a lot more quietly this time. "Well, you know how the Yondaime defeated the Kyuubi all those years ago? Turns out you can't kill chakra beasts, you have to seal them away." She looked up and met Shikamaru's eyes. "He sealed it in me when I was a newborn baby Shika." Shikamaru could see it was hurting Naruto to tell him this, so he placed a hand on her shoulder in comfort. "I've known about the Kyuubi since I was 5. She's how I know as much as I do, you know. Growing up with no one, she acted like a sister for me and I trust her, Shika. You need to understand that Kurama has never hurt me, only helped and healed me. When I was rendered unconscious, I met with her in my mindscape and we went over my options: stay there and die, return and stay blind, return and have her heal me the best she can, which would leave me with blurred vision at best, or merge with her." Shikamaru's eyes widened as he realized what option they went with. "I can see you figured it out, huh?" "Well, to be honest, neither of us knew how obvious and severe the changes would be. I knew I'd get her sight, and I know now I'm getting her other senses because I managed to stab that Zabuza guy before I even really knew he was there, same with the bunny. But this," Naruto gestured to the physical changes. "Well, I don't know." Naruto went silent for a moment before catching Shikamaru's eye again. "Worst of all, Shika, it's gone. Oh, yeah, I guess it would be, huh? How troublesome. Shika suddenly felt very awkward, his thoughts going to if that had happened to him. He could almost feel the color drain from his face. I guess that explains the scream. Naruto blushed again. Shikamaru moved to sit next to Naruto rather than across from her. The two of them leaned on the bathroom wall in silence, just taking everything in. You know he was my father? Minato, I know. I've known that one for a while. I mean, you were like a chibi version of him. How no one else noticed is beyond me. They fell back into silence, and sat there for what felt like hours before they moved again. Shikamaru sent a pointed look back to Asuma. Quickly understanding the hidden message, the man shut the door and turned to the other genin. Head back downstairs and finish your dinner. But Asuma-sensei, I want to know what happened to Naruto. Ino stepped forward, whining, hoping to get her way. Forget what Ino Pig wants. Sasuke and I are his teammates. We should be in there, not that lazy guy. No. Now all of you go. Asuma crossed his arms until they all turned and shuffled down the stairs. Sending one last look at the door, Asuma sighed and went to finish his tea as well. Kakashi, you better bloody wake up soon. I need a cigarette. Asuma slowly wandered back down the stairs. In his mind he was calculating how Shikamaru was going to deal with the situation. He is probably playing it like a game of shogi. The man took his time to finish and enjoy his meal before he excused himself. The outside air had cooled off considerably since they had arrived, and as he lit a cigarette he could see the smoke wisp and curl upwards. As he took a long drag he heard a small sound behind him on the roof. Looking up he could see the outlines of two of the genin. One had a pineapple-like shape to the head, and the other he assumed was Kakashi's strange little student. Not so little anymore though. There would be a lot of explaining to do tomorrow, he was sure of it. Asuma couldn't help but light a second cigarette. The next morning Kakashi woke up, his body still very tired. He scanned the room and found Asuma, Shikamaru and the Akimichi boy sleeping in packs while Sasuke was laying on just a blanket using his pack as a pillow. Where's Naruto? I'm guessing the girls are in with Tsunami, but I can't even see a bed for Naruto. He managed to force his body into a sitting position, but during his struggle he woke Asuma up. The man looked over and smirked. Don't tell me your body is finally catching up with you, hair color. I'm sorry, did you say something? Kakashi tried playing it cool but failed epically. He knew it too. You baka, that only works on guy. Asuma walked over to his jounin partner and helped him up. Supporting Kakashi's weight they walked over to the door and left the room. Carrying up the stairs was the sound of someone rummaging around the kitchen, so the two silently decided to head down and find the source of the sound. Asuma secretly hoped it was Tsunami cooking breakfast. Her meal last night was amazing. Kakashi on the other hand was on a mission. A mission to find his missing knucklehead. He still had many questions to ask him. As they finally got to the bottom step they walked out into the landing of the meals room and turned to look into the kitchen. As Asuma had hoped, Tsunami was there happily working away, but beside her was another woman, and while she was much younger she was definitely far ahead in the means of womanly curves. Asuma cleared his throat, and they both turned to look at them. Kakashi-sensei. Asuma-san, good morning. Her voice was like silk to their ears and she giggled as Kakashi's jaw dropped. You better close your mouth before you catch flies. Tsunami and I were just cooking breakfast, can one of you go wake the others up? I'll go. Asuma quickly helped Kakashi sit before almost running up the stairs. As he ran up the stairs he couldn't help the grin that formed on his face. The others hadn't seen the new Naruto yet. Shikamaru let out a sigh as he looked over to Naruto. Well, I don't know about you, but I think I'm going to call it a night. Don't do anything stupid, yeah. In the glow from the moon he could see his childhood friend shift and give him a sour look. The two of them had moved from the bathroom floor to the roof hours ago, and had settled down watching the stars. Since they had come up they had seen Asuma walk out to the front deck and smoke a few cigarettes, and had also heard everyone move off to bed not too long after that. They hadn't spoken since coming up here until now. Thinking Naruto wasn't going to reply, Shika stood and started to make his way down. Night. Shika looking back he let a little smile slip onto his face. As he left, Naruto sat up and got into a meditation pose. It was time to try and find out what had actually happened, and what was going on. It only took Naruto a few minutes to clear her mind and soon found herself walking through the familiar hallways of her mindscape. Kurama? Naruto followed the usual path to where the seal used to be. Kurama, can you hear me? Naruto rounded the corner and entered the large room that used to contain the sealed cage and gasped. Laying in the middle of the floor was a fox, around the size of a horse. Kurama had been compacted down into the size equivalent of what her paw had been. Neru? I was wondering when you'd show up. The fox morphed into a human shape and Naruto welcomed the large grin that seeped onto her face. Rama! The two of them fell into what could only be described as a bone-crushing hug. Kurama finally pulled away after a few minutes and took a good look at the young boy, now young woman in front of her. Oh, I'm so sorry, Neru. The thought of this happening did cross my mind, but I never thought it would be completely possible. It's okay, honestly, we will get through this, and we will do it together, Rama. Kurama looked up to see pure determination in Naruto's eyes. Well, okay, then I guess this means we had better figure out everything that's changed, yes? Naruto looked down and nodded. Well, one thing's for sure, it's gone. Kurama burst out laughing. Oh honey, you're still stuck on that. You will survive, trust me, it's more fun being female. The look in her eye told Naruto of all the mischief they could get up to, and she too grinned. Noticing Naruto was distracted, Kurama quickly and quietly added, sometimes, The two of them sat down and began listing any changes they'd noticed so far. Past the obvious change in gender and appearance, they had listed her reflexes, hearing and sense of smell, as well as her predatory instincts. So you mean I'm becoming more fox-like? Well, considering what I am, I guess it's only natural. But we will keep an eye on it, and if it continues to change and become more fox-like, Kurama used quotation marks as she used Naruto's terminology. Well, I'm guessing that since the merge has only recently happened, any improvements or changes are either still developing or possibly even have yet to show. If I grow fox ears and a tail, I'm coming in here and kicking your arse. Oh, they'd be gorgeous. Besides, think of all the endless possibilities you'd be able to use them for. I'm thinking your sexy no jutsu, but with a twist? Rama. Goodness, I'm not going to use my new body for that. I mean, I do have some nice curves to me, but Rama, that's too far. Oh, Naruto, you will have to answer that calling eventually, and trust me, your voice alone is enough to make any man shake. Naruto hit Kurama on the shoulder, who just laughed it off. Kurama! I was a male myself up until recent. Don't make me tease you more, she said with a wink. The two continued to talk over things a bit more and came up with a game plan on how they'd approach the long overdue conversation with Team 7 and Team 10. It was decided that Naruto would definitely tell them over breakfast the following morning, and then depending how things went, she would either encourage Kakashi to train them, or she would leave for the day and train herself. It wasn't a good plan, but it was better than going in completely unprepared. They continued chatting away, even to the point where Kurama told Naruto about the things women have to do and about what she learned about being a woman from observing Kushina. Naruto was thoroughly embarrassed. Everyone get your arses out of bed. Breakfast is almost ready. Asuma took satisfaction in their reaction. The three male genin woke shocked and panicked as they were yelled at. Much to his dismay, it didn't take long for Shikamaru and Choji recognize his voice. The Uchiha, on the other hand, looked at him trying to be tough, but Asuma could still see the panic deep in his eyes. Laughing, he turned and exited the room, heading down to where the girls were staying. Knocking on their door, he called out, "Ino, Sakura, get up. Breakfast is ready, and I'm sure you guys need something to keep you going. If not, then you still better bloody come down." Asuma turned on his heel to go back downstairs, thoughts lingering on what was about to go down. As he once again reached the landing, Asuma saw that breakfast had already been served and that Naruto and Tsunami were eating. Kakashi was just sitting there staring at his student. Walking over towards the man, Asuma tapped Kakashi on the shoulder and gestured towards the food. "Eat up, you sure need it after your chakra exhaustion." The scarecrow just hummed in response but quickly ate, then set his mask back in place before anyone could notice. How the man ate so fast and without anyone noticing still amazed Asuma to this day. There must be genjutsu involved. A very good genjutsu. It wasn't long before they heard sounds of the genin on the stairs. Every instinct was telling Naruto to run, but a look from both jounin kept her in place. "Oh, what's for breakfast? I smells amazing." Choji was the first down, and as he turned to where the food was, he faltered for a second before Shikamaru came behind him and pushed him on. "Food first, Choji, don't make this harder for Naruto." His voice was only a whisper, but Naruto's ear twitched as she overheard the sentence. As the rest of the genin entered the room, the reactions were mixed. The two girls halted in their tracks, one silently raging that her male teammate had bigger breasts than her, while the other instantly fussed over how cute her kimono was and where did she get it. "A Tsunami let me borrow it. It's a bit small though, so I will have to find something else to wear soon," was Naruto's awkward response, while Tsunami also answered, "Oh, it's nothing special, just one I've had for years." The Uchiha's attention had pulled away from brooding as the new yet slightly familiar voice spoke up. He turned his gaze towards the new woman, finding she looked strikingly similar to how Naruto had looked yesterday. Except this person was very obviously female. Sasuke couldn't stop his eye from wandering to her very obvious and partially visible breasts. Sasuke team, his eye was quickly pulled up to meet the woman face to face. Sasuke found himself staring at crimson eyes and very familiar whisker marks. "Are you growling?" She instantly stopped and moved back to her breakfast as if nothing had happened. "Oh Kami, Rama, I just growled at Sasuke team." At the back of her mind she could hear her cackling. "Everyone eat up, we have a long day ahead of us." Kakashi spoke as if there was nothing out of the ordinary, but was silently twitching, impatiently waiting for everyone to eat. As they were partway through the food, Inari appeared, giving them all a harsh look. "I don't know why you're doing this, you're all going to die, Inari." Tsunami stood and turned towards her son. "Don't say things like that." The boy just dropped his bottom lip and ran away crying. "I apologize for Inari's behavior." Silence had overtaken the group as they sat around eating the meal Tsunami and Naruto had prepared, and once everyone had finished they all shared their thank yous. As Tsunami moved to clear the table, the ninja fell into an awkward silence, no one knowing what to say. Naruto blinked. "Speak up, Missy, or I will test what it's like for me to be out." Naruto's eyes widened slightly, just picturing how that'd turn out. "Well, I'm sure you are all wondering what happened." Naruto couldn't bring herself to look up but could feel the eyes on her, although she wasn't sure if it was because of her terrible attempt of starting the conversation or because she actually started this conversation. Taking a deep breath, she continued, "Oh well, when we were attacked by those Chunin, I remember seeing one going for Sasuke, and I guess I just jumped in the way. I got cut, but the blade was poisoned. I don't remember what happened, but I could hear Sasuke talking. Then I think I fell unconscious." She stopped and looked around as she felt the air change in the room. "What?" What happened? You died on us. Kakashi looked shattered as he said it. The reactions of the group varied per person. Sasuke instantly became uncomfortable remembering the blood that was on his hands while Sakura looked like she was going to puke. Part of Team 10 looked at Naruto completely astonished while Shikamaru and Asuma gave an understanding look, one pointed to Naruto and one at Kakashi. Oh well, I'm sorry if I scared you. The now young woman looked down once again thinking things over before she continued. I had a choice, you know? I could have died, I could have stayed in my mindscape and just left everything here behind, but I was given to choice. She looked up determined. 12 years ago our village was attacked. The Yondaime Hokage and many of our ninja fought hard to protect their home and everyone in it, but the force of the enemy was too much. That enemy was the Kyuubi no Yoko. The Yondaime was forced to take things further. He sealed the chakra beast. As kids we were taught it was killed, but that's wrong, you can't kill chakra. So he sealed it, half into himself and half into a newborn baby. She took a small break letting the information sink in. I was that baby, that's how I was given a choice. I trust in the Kyuubi, and the Kyuubi trusts in me. Asuma sent a look to Kakashi but didn't speak up. I am no longer just Naruto Uzumaki. I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. My blood is of the whirlpool and my heart is of the wind, and behind me I hold the title of the beast, not just as a Jinchuriki. Ino went to open her mouth but Shikamaru promptly covered it with his hand. Perhaps we should keep this all between us? He looked over to the two Jounin. And anything else that comes up? The two Jounin nodded before Kakashi spoke up. Definitely. When we return to Konoha we will report to Hokage-sama and sort things out then. I, just as much as the rest of you, want to know everything else, but perhaps Naruto Haruko has reasons for not telling us everything. He turned and gave his student a long hard look but she didn't crack, instead she returned it. Perhaps we should use this curious energy and put it towards training? I don't know about you lot, but I think it would be good to keep busy. She pulled her award-winning smile, somehow even more bright than what it was when she was a he. As everyone agreed, albeit some unwilling, she couldn't keep the smugness of her success from reaching her face. Training had gone relatively well. Naruto had discovered she now had more than acceptable chakra control and had been able to figure things out easier than before. This was something noticed by Kakashi. Naruto had put 110% into the tree climbing exercise that Kakashi had set them all to, and as he spoke to the group, Kurama spoke to her, adding things her sensei didn't mention. Focus the chakra into your feet. Too little and you'll fall, but too much and it will reject and explode. Naruto had managed to reach the top of the tree along with Sakura and Shikamaru, while Ino and Sasuke made it half. Choji hadn't been determined enough to put all his effort into it. For the whole morning they were training, Naruto could hear Ino and Sakura in the distance whispering about her. They were questioning everything from who she really was to how was her hair, not getting caught up in the exercise. The two girls never approached her though. The morning soon disappeared and Kakashi ordered them all back to Tazuna's home for lunch and rest. As they approached the house, Naruto once again felt the eyes in her and couldn't help the sigh that escaped her lips. She stopped walking and turned to face everyone. You do realize I can hear everything you are saying? I can feel you all staring and I'm getting over it fast. As she spoke she had no idea of the effect it had. Why don't you just say it my face, huh? She placed her hands on her hips and looked everyone in the eye. Nary your leaking chakra. Kurama's voice sounded in the back of her mind, causing her to fault and pull the chakra back. Shocked, she looked around at everyone again. She could visibly see the effect of her chakra fading. It wasn't Ki she had been leaking, it was almost as if her chakra had been playing with their hormones and emotions. What the? She was quickly cut off. Whatever the heck that was, don't do it again. Kakashi pauses as he got his thoughts together. That was intoxicating actually. Naruto, you need to be careful with that. Kakashi-sensei? We may need to help them. Naruto gestured towards the others. Choji, Ino, Sakura and Sasuke had all fainted from her chakra and a small drop of blood was seen under their noses. Oh honey, you really are a vixen. Naruto couldn't help the blush from reaching her face but didn't reply. Whoops. She scratched the back of her neck and grinned as the two Jounin worked on waking their genin up, but her attention was soon turned elsewhere. Sue, did it affect you? Because you didn't faint, and I can understand our senseis not, but you on the other hand. Troublesome. Shikamaru put his hands back into his pockets and went to continue walking to the house. Hey! Troublesome is not an answer, mister. She reached forward to grab his arm, but he sidestepped at the last second, causing her to fall. The only problem with that though was that Naruto was still wearing the slightly too small kimono Tsunami had lent her, and as she had trained that morning the obi they used to hold it in place had gradually loosened. The fall had been enough to shift it completely. As Naruto stood up, the small piece of cloth fell and the front of her kimono opened all the way, effectively showing Shikamaru everything. His eyes widened slightly, but he quickly caught his mind. He turned and put his head down and continued his journey to the house, but he couldn't hide the very bright blush on his face. When they finally got back, the group sat in an awkward silence as they ate their meal. Many were thinking over their strange morning. Looking around the room, Sakura sighed before her eyes landed on Inari, who was staring at a torn family photograph. Why does Inari keep looking at that picture? Everyone stopped eating as Inari stood up angered and ran from the room. Tsunami shared a look with Tazuna before following him out as Tazuna grabbed their attention by talking. His name was Kaiza and was Inari's stepfather. He was a hero. He came here as a traveling fisherman and met Inari when he saved him from drowning. Inari came to rely on him heavily to the point where he wouldn't stand up for himself. Everyone listened as Tazuna spoke. They could tell by his voice they were all fond of the man. He became titled as a hero when he single-handedly saved a large portion of the village from a flood. However, when Dato arrived, he had Kaiser killed in an attempt to destroy the hope of the land, a strategy that sadly succeeded and traumatized our Inari. He lost all hope and doesn't believe in heroes anymore. That's why he hasn't been nice to you lot. I'm sorry for bringing it up. Don't be, Sakura. The group once again fell into silence, understanding what the boy had been through. Deep in her thoughts, Naruko decided it was up to her to make Inari believe in heroes again. Later that afternoon, Naruko snuck out intent on training and mastering the tree climbing as well as working out what she had done with her chakra earlier to make the others faint. Naruko had been out for hours and had climbed the trees that many times both her and Kurama has lost count. Wiping the sweat off her brow, Naruko made the decision to work on the strange chakra that she had released earlier. Without listening to what Kurama wanted to say, Naruko tested it out, claiming she would be fine, but as she sent it out, all at once, the shock of it returning to her at the same force she released caused her to stumble back and faint from shock. As the days slipped into night, Naruko remained in the forest sound asleep, completely oblivious to everything around her. Kurama kept a lookout from her position inside Naruko. One of the many benefits of the merge was that she now had much greater awareness of things around them. Hours passed by, and as the sun rose, Kurama felt someone approaching. Kit, wake up. Are you okay? I don't think it's very safe to be sleeping in the forest alone. Naruko opened her eyes to a stunning young woman. Oh, there's no need to worry, stranger-chan. I am a ninja. Her voice came out a lot more sultry than she had intended, but instead of showing the shock she felt inside, a small coy smile appeared on her lips. The stranger's eyes widened slightly, and they cleared their voice before replying. My name is Haku, may I ask yours? Naruko held her hand out as if she wanted help to stand up, and Haku awkwardly complied. I'm Naruko. She have a look to Haku, eyeing off the fancy kimono. I was out here training, but what were you doing? Gathering herbs. My friend is ill and I want to make him better. If you were training, why are you wearing a kimono? That's not very appropriate for a ninja. The two continued throwing questions back at each other, covering the topics of their precious people to the color of their shoes, getting closer and closer until Naruko grabbed Haku's chin. You are hiding something, what have you not told me? She let go of Haku before turning away. You need to leave. Haku quickly nodded and turned away. By the way, I'm a male. Naruko just raised an eyebrow. Oops. As Haku disappeared from sight, footsteps were heard behind her, quickly canceling her self-questioning thoughts. Naruko? Finally, I've been looking for you all morning. What have you been doing, you dope? Never mind, you missed breakfast. It wasn't long before the two fell into a competition. They set to climbing trees, and Naruko waited until Sasuke reached the top before she did, and they triumphantly left for Tazuna's. They were both exhausted, but Naruko was extremely cheerful, something no one appreciated. As I said before, you're all going to die. You keep working as if you stand a chance, but you're wrong. You have no idea, and you never will, because you haven't been through what we have. Inari stood his ground. Is that really what you think? Naruko stood up, slamming her hands on the table. If it is, then you're just a coward. She turned and left the room. No one followed her. The next morning the group had split up. Naruko was left to sleep in while the rest of Team 7 went to the bridge and Team 10 had gone off training. As Naruto woke, she looked outside to see the sun already high in the sky. Before jumping up, panicked. She ran downstairs and shouted a quick good morning to Tsunami and Inari, and received a laugh and small shy smile in return. Naruko knew they had gone to the bridge and left at her top speed. Naru! Stop! At the loud shout in her head, Naruko stumbled and fell over. Her face landed right next to a dead carcass. Almost instantly she shot up and shuffled back, a high-pitched squeal escaping her lips. I can't believe I just squealed. Naruko sighed before she assessed the scene Kurama had stopped her in. The trees had all been slashed, and the poor hog she almost landed on had only been freshly killed. She noticed with wide eyes the damaged head in the direction of Tazuna's home. Oh Kami, Rama, I don't know if I can't fight yet. There was a moment's silence as Naruko ran back before Kurama answered. I don't know either, but just do what comes naturally, Kit. Naruko didn't question what she had meant. Instead she snuck out of the tree line and onto the roof of the building. She felt the blood rush to her nose and ears as she spied on those below. As she listened, she realized the two thugs had entered the home and demanded Tsunami come with them. But Inari had appeared, stopping them for a moment. Come with us or the boy dies. One timid the thugs held his sword up to Inari, ready to use it again. Don't. You kill him, and I will bite my tongue and kill myself. You need a hostage, right? Then let him go, and I will come with you. The two thugs and looked at each other and agreed. You're lucky, boy. They ushered Tsunami out into the deck, and Naruko continued to watch on. As she had hoped, Inari appeared once again and faced his fears. She silently dropped to the ground behind them, and as they went to attack Inari, she cleared her throat. You know, boys, one should always watch his back. She threw a shuriken at one and kicked the other in the back, forcing him to let go of Tsunami before she managed to knock them out. Then, together the three tied the thugs up. You know what, you really are brave. She ruffled Inari's hair and winked before she excused herself and took off in the direction of the bridge. Team 7 and Tazuna had arrived at the bridge that morning, planning on getting the build moving and closer to completion, only to stop in a mix of shock, fear and anger. All around was the dead bodies of Tazuna's workers, and before they could tend to the dead, a screen of mist seeped into the clearing, confirming Kakashi and Asuma's suspicion. Zabuza was still alive. Zabuza is still alive, just as I thought. Be on guard. Kakashi uncovered his Sharingan and took out a kunai, ready for anything. Your cute little genin isn't here, Sorry, Haku, but it looks as though you won't have any competition after all. Kakashi assumed that this Haku was the masked nin from their last encounter. That one is shaking again. Heh, pathetic. Oh, he isn't shaking from fear. Sasuke now. Sasuke struck out just as multiple clones appeared around them. He hit all of them, and they turned to water. His speed has improved this past week. Haku used the team's cockiness and Zabuza's now destroyed jutsu to his advantage, demonic mirroring ice crystals. The puddle's water shot up and hardened around Sasuke, taking the form of many mirrors, and Haku stepped into one. Your student is as good as dead now, Hatake. Kakashi turned and went to help his student, but was stopped by Zabuza. Back in the mirror dome, Haku was throwing Saban at the Uchiha, violently cutting various parts of his skin. Sasuke was doing his best to try and catch the masked nin, but he just wasn't fast enough. Sakura threw a kunai and hoping it would hit its target, but was instantly disappointed when it was caught. Fear rose up in her chest as all she could do was stand and watch, hoping Team 10 would appear. Her silent plead for backup was partially answered when Naruto broke into the clearing. Almost instantly Naruto took in the scene before her and raced over to Sasuke. She jumped up and slipped through the gap at the top of the dome and threw multiple shuriken and managed to knock Sasuke's masked captor out of the mirrors. Staring at the masked person, she took in his hair and attire before smirking. So this is what you were hiding from me? Oh, Haku-kun, why do you hide your pretty face from me? She could feel Sasuke's eyes on her back and could tell he was staring at her like she was crazy. Maybe she was, but Naruto wasn't going to let that stop her. Instead, she slowly released the strange chakra and let it seep over to Haku. She was hoping it would distract him enough to get Sasuke out of the dome, but the second she went to push him through the gap, Haku stopped them. Haku threw more Saban at the two, all of which hit their target. Sasuke groaned in pain as more needles broke through his skin. He could feel all his energy leaving his body. Naruto looked back and saw her teammates struggling to even move, then looked back to Haku. In the mirror behind him she could see Sasuke and herself. It was almost as if it was taunting her. Her friend was dying and she couldn't do anything. As she defended herself and Sasuke from the continued onset of Saban, she took in her appearance. She was taller and slimmer. Her waist and hips were like those in Kakashi's sturdy book, and her breasts were shaped perfectly. Not too big, but definitely not too small. Her hair was wild and free and reached her hips, but somehow didn't get caught up in her blocking attacks and throwing of shuriken. The light reflected from the blonde but disappeared in the red. As she met Haku at one of the mirrors blocking another attack, she was pleased to note she still had her whisker marks and the shape of her father's eyes, but the crimson color that filled them was like blood. It was slightly off-putting seeing them on herself, but knowing her eyes were given to her by Kurama, she smiled. Naruto pulled away from Haku and guarded over Sasuke once more, and as she sent her chakra out once more, she noticed it was more potent, and was enough to make Haku shake and fall from the mirror. The dome above them melted as it was covered in her chakra, and before her Haku fell to his knee. Naruto looked around in shock. Had her chakra really done this? As she was about to talk, a noise in the distance stopped her and broke Haku out of his trance. I'm sorry, Naruto, but this is where I must leave. He was gone in an instant. Kakashi had summoned his Niken, who tracked Zabuza down in the mist, and held him in place. As Kakashi prepared his jutsu, the clearing broke out in the sound of birds chirping, and as Zabuza released his jutsu, the area cleared and the fall of the ice dome was seen. The only sound was the chirping as he thrust his arm forward to Zabuza's chest, and the sound of it hitting flesh erupted. Haku! Naruto came running over as Kakashi focused on the figure in front of him. It was the masked nin. So Zabuza was your precious person, huh? She stepped forward and took Haku off Kakashi's arm. Naruto laid him on the ground and took his mask off and placed it next to him. You know, we could have been friends under different circumstances. She places a gentle kiss to his forehead and stood up, clenching her fists. He cared for you. You were his precious person, and you just let him die. She continued on talking and shouting, hoping to strike a nerve in Zabuza's cold heart. He was a ninja. A ninja is just a tool, and that's all he was to me. Naruto stood up ready to attack him, but Kakashi stopped her. Before their fight could continue, a slow clapping sound came from the far side of the bridge. Around 100 hired thugs stood around the source of the clapping. A short fat man they all knew was Gato. Seeing he had everyone's attention, he broke into speech about how he had planned on killing Haku and Zabuza and only using them as they were tools. During his speech, Inari and many of the townspeople appeared and gathered behind the ninja. Along with them was Team 10. Zabuza had finally had enough of the man's talking and snapped. He grabbed his sword and looked towards Naruto. He didn't say anything, but a small tear glistened in his eye. Running forward, he wiped out the thugs on the direct path to Gato before stopping in front of him. This is for Haku. He pulled his weapon up and brought it down on Gato, instantly killing the man. He turned around unfazed by the blood and growled, but was met with the thugs running and fleeing onto the boat they came on. He shook his head before walking over to Haku's body and knelt down next to him. He picked up Haku's hand and let the tears fall as everyone fell into silence. He stayed there completely oblivious to those around him for what felt like hours, and only when he finally felt a small hand on his shoulder did he look away from Haku. Zabuza picked up Haku's hand and let the tears fall as everyone around them fell into silence. He stayed there completely oblivious to those around him for what felt like hours, and he only looked away from Haku when he felt a delicate hand rest on his shoulder. Naruto was kneeling next to him with a sad look in her eye. "We've been here for a few hours, Zabuza. Did you notice the snow?" Zabuza pulled the bandage from his face and looked up to the sky and muttered, "I'm sorry, Haku. To make you cry, I just hope you know what you truly meant to me." He looked back over to Naruto, who smiled at him. "Perhaps we should give Haku a proper burial?" She gestured to the bridge. "Everything has been cleaned up and they're working down the other end. I thought I had better stay by your side for now." Silently Zabuza agreed to the burial, and they chose a clearing full of flowers and herbs. It was rather beautiful and reminded Zabuza of Haku. He dug the hole himself as they stayed in silence. The deeper he dug, the more his heart broke. Once Haku had been laid to rest, he spoke. "I regret never letting him know how much he actually meant to me. The day he met you in the forest, he came back smiling like an idiot. He was a good kid." He placed a large stone on top of the grave and gently sat Haku's mask on top. "What are you going to do now?" Naruto stood a little distance away with her arms crossed over her chest. It was then Zabuza noticed her kimono had been cut multiple times and left nothing for the imagination. He looked back at Haku's grave quickly, then back at Naruto. "Well, first I'm going to get you some clothes. After that, I'm not sure." He grabbed onto Naruto's wrist and took off at a fast pace. Before long they had arrived out the front of a small log cabin and went inside. Haku kept his things over there. "Take his clothes." "Oh, I can't do that to you." Naruto stood there, shock visible in her eyes. "I have no use for his clothes. You on the other hand do." "I'd rather them go to use anyway." He looked awkward for a split second, then turned around. Naruto took it as her cue to change. Among Haku's belongings she found the pink sleeveless kimono he had been wearing when they met, and quickly replaced Tsunami's tattered one with it. "You can turn around again." A flash of sadness flicked through Zabuza's eyes as he saw what she had chosen. "I always liked that one." His eye caught something and smiled as he picked it up. "Here, I will put this on for you. Hold your hair up." Around her neck he placed the thin black choker Haku had been wearing. It was strange to be in his clothing, but everything fitted surprisingly well. "It suits you. Make sure you always wear that too." He gestured to the choker. "A fox like you needs a collar. Hey!" In the back of her mind Kurama once again lost herself to laughter. "You're a vixen, kid. You have a future ahead of you in seduction and assassination. You will need help though." He picked up his kubikuri bocho and sat down to clean it. "You best be getting back to the bridge, kid." Naruto stared at him for a moment before nodding the yeah okay. See you around?" She sniffed and crossed her arms. Never had she felt so awkward and unsure of what to do. "Scram, kid." She quickly ran out of the cabin and don't look back. When the bridge was finally completed, Team 7 and Team 10 packed their belongings and made their way for home. As they reached the other side of the waters, they were met by everyone from the village and were praised with gratitude. Out of the group, Tazuna stepped forward and spoke. "I want to thank you all for what you've done for us. Helping us complete this bridge will change our lives forever, and if you ever need a bridge builder, let me know." He acknowledged each of the two teams, and as his eye landed on Naruto he smiled. "And you, so much has happened on this mission for you, and yet you've stayed as strong-willed and knucklehead as you were when I met you in the office. You might not be as short as you were, but you're still annoying, Brad. I want to thank you the most. You did something no one else has been able to do for a very long time." He turned to look at Inari. "You put confidence back into my little grandson, and both Tsunami and I are grateful. You brought the whole village together by that alone, and all of us thank you." A big grin broke out onto his face as Naruto blushed. "That is why we have all decided to name the bridge after you." In his overdramatic shout, a banner dropped to the ground behind them to reveal an overhead sign. "The Great Naruto Bridge. Again we thank you all." As they said their goodbyes and another round of thank yous, Inari ran to Naruto and hugged her. "You know it's okay to cry." Inari held his tears back, trying to stay strong in front of the ninja as Naruto defied her own words and held her tears in too. "Naruto, hurry up." Kakashi's voice broke through to them, and she smiled at the boy before turning away. Naruto waved over her shoulder until they were out of sight, then allowed the tears to fall. "Oh Naruto, grow up." Sakura rolled her eyes and moved to walk next to Sasuke. On his other side was Ino. The two girls chattered and gossiped, completely ignoring that the Uchiha's ears were getting damaged. As they walked, Asuma lit a cigarette, and Choji dug into a fresh packet of his favorite flavor chips. From where he grabbed them no one would know. Next to them Shikamaru was walking along in silence with hands in his pockets and a bored look on his face, and behind them Kakashi had his nose in his little orange book with Naruto, who was still silently crying. To anyone who saw them they would have looked extremely odd and out of place. As the group walked home, Naruto's thoughts shifted back to Zabuza. She knew he had been following them since they'd left Wave, but decided only now to comment on it to Kakashi. She pulled back to walk next to her sensei and whispered, "Kakashi-sensei, we are being followed." He just gave her a blank look. "I know it's your new friend. I'm not dealing with him, he's your trouble to look after." They heard Asuma snicker. "Oh gee, thanks." She pouted at the man before grinning. Giving a quick look at the others, she turned back to him, then quickly pushed him over, grinning. Asuma's small snicker turned into full-blown laughter. "Oh Kakashi-sensei, you should really be more careful. Maybe you should stop reading that book and look where you're going." Her heart stopped as Kakashi dusted himself down and looked her dead in the eyes. Oh, she ran. She ran fast. Naruto took off at such a speed that she knocked Sakura over just by running past her. Naruto didn't look back, but she heard Sakura's rage-filled shouts follow after her, and silently agreed to keep running until she reached Konoha. The others would catch up eventually. Zabuza was standing in the distance watching the Konoha shinobi say farewell to the people of Wave. A part of him was cursing himself, questioning why he was watching them, while another part was staring at the young woman who had caught his attention. She had a fire inside that demanded his attention. In a way, it reminded him of himself, but a lot less savage. He liked it, not that he would admit that out loud. As the group started on their journey, he too left. Following behind them, Zabuza observed each one, taking note of any useful information. I know it's your new friend. I'm not dealing with him, he's your trouble to look after. The sentence pulled his attention to Walking Scarecrow. At least they're not dumb enough to not notice me following. Although some of those brats look shocked. Oh gee, thanks. Zabuza could almost hear the slyness on her voice. He wasn't disappointed when the girl pushed the man over. Oh Kakashi-sensei, you should really be more careful. Maybe you should stop reading that book and look where you're going. There was silence for a moment, but the tension in the air rose. Oh, she ran. She ran fast. Naruto took off at such a speed that she knocked over the pink girl just by running past her. Naruto didn't look back. Perhaps I should follow her? Zabuza's train of thought was interrupted as the two jounin spoke up. Perhaps we should catch up with Naruto? I have no doubt that she will continue to run at full speed until she reaches Konoha's gates. Hey, you sure that Pipsqueak has that much energy? Asuma turned to the Scarecrow and took a puff from his cigarette. She is Konoha's #1 unpredictable shinobi. Guess I should say Kunoichi now. Kakashi shook his head. Is everyone good to go? Sensei, I don't know why you're even bothering with Naruto. He is being stupid. Why are you accepting this, Naruto? It's ridiculous. The pink-haired banshee stopped walking and crossed her arms. The tension in the air once again rose as Kakashi turned his attention to her. You are the one being stupid. You have been with us for this entire mission, and yet you act as if you know nothing? He took a step forward before continuing. You, Sensei. The Uchiha brat stepped between them and Sakura's eyes went wide before filling up with a predatory glaze. You cannot force her to see this differently. She is being stupid, yes. But I don't think you can talk the stupid out of someone. The group was so silent Zabuza could hear the pink girl's heart shatter. If he had eyebrows, he definitely would have raised them. It was interesting to take in the reactions of the Konoha nin. The pink banshee collapsed to her knees as Kakashi just stood there before nodding his head slowly. The young Uchiha turned on his heel and took off in the direction of Naruto in silence. He didn't even spare a glance at the girl he just hurt. The others shared a look as they got over the shock before one spoke up. Perhaps we should get home ASAP. It may be troublesome, but once we are there everyone can just have time to think over things. Reporting to the Hokage may just help set things straight. The young kid looked towards his blonde teammate and gestured towards the other girl. Right, let's move. Sakura, get up and travel with Ino. We leave now. They left instantly with Zabuza once again not far behind. As Naruto reached the gates of Konoha, her pace slowed to a stop. Here goes nothing. She slowly took a step forward before stopping again. Maybe I should wait for the others. The gatekeeper sent her a strange look, but let her be. Yep, definitely waiting for the others. She knew no one would recognize her. After all, when she had left the village she had been a foot shorter and a male. She wasn't waiting long before Sasuke broke through the tree line. Instantly Naruto was on her feet waiting for the others. Don't tell me you ditched them too? Sasuke came to a stop next to her. HN. Naruto rolled her eyes before turning became to the tree line. You think they're coming? I don't want to be standing here all day. I gotta pee. She started doing a little jig, shifting from foot to foot almost as if it would help. Fear seeped into Netuko's heart as the group of 8 approached the Hokage Tower. They had already been through an awkward encounter at the gates and now she had to tell Gigi what had happened. She was sure that by the time their meeting was over the whole village would know something was different with the demon brat. It was strange not being glared at for showing her face in the streets. It was kind of nice, but she knew it wouldn't last long. Neru, hurry up now. She turned to look at her sensei to see him holding out his hand. Since that day he had completely changed his ways and was trying to be the best brother he could be. Naruto rolled her eyes. Kashi-sensei, I don't need to hold your hand. I'm not a baby anymore. Heck, I'm not even who I was last month. Her face contorted into a strange yet pained look. Well, either way we need to do this report at some stage, and I personally am rather pleased to report you're still alive rather than a casualty, because you were very close to being one. Naruto looked up to see his visible eye has a very serious gleam to it, and knew instantly to follow him. Nodding, she crossed her arms over her chest and followed behind him, quietly noticing the other do the same. The group stayed silent as they approached the large doors to the Hokage's office. Kakashi, being the leader of the mission, stepped forward to knock on the door, letting his chakra spike. They didn't need to wait long before they were summoned inside, much to the relief of many of the reporting nin, but to the dismay of one in particular. Kakashi and Asuma stepped to the front of the group with their teams standing behind them respectively, and in unison they all bowed in respect. The old man behind the worn yet sturdy desk sighed as he placed his hands in front of his face. Leaning back into the chair, the third Hokage opened his mouth before closing it again. Well, Naruto, you've definitely changed a bit. That's all you can say? Naruto's fingers found their way into her hair as her anger took control. I've turned into a freaking girl and merged with the QB, and all you can say is that I've changed a bit? It was as the last words left her mouth did it dawn on her what exactly she had said. Well, Packen didn't mention that, just that you look different. Trust you to say it so bluntly though. No beating around the bush. The older Sarutobi sat back in his chair as he turned his attention to Kakashi. Perhaps we should quickly get the report over with, then go into detail? The older Sarutobi gestured for them to start. The report was given quickly and efficiently, with each of the team giving their own account of events, and by the time they had finished, Naruto was sitting there silently, listening. Okay, now Naruto, does everyone here know your status? The Hokage receives a bad. Is there anyone else you wish to inform? Honestly? I'd prefer it if no one ever knew, but considering things I should probably tell Team 8. They are currently on a mission out of town, but when they return we could organize another meeting? Naruto shrugged, not knowing what to say. I'm sure everyone will know soon anyway. How else are we going to explain the fact that I'm suddenly female? The group fell into silence once again before Sakura gained the courage to speak again. Why are guys going along with this stupid prank? She scoffed, and rolled her eyes. Honestly, it's ridiculous. And everyone knows the fourth Hokage killed the QB. Before anyone could respond, Naruto met her dead in the eye. Sakura, I've already explained this. You cannot kill Chakra. Why are you not accepting of that? Don't tell me you're jealous? Naruto's foul expression changed into a coy one before she continued, just because my curves are nicer than yours. Naruto placed her hands on her hips and stood proudly, causing Kakashi to sweat drop. Ma, with the way she's acting anyone would think he's been a she her whole life? He shrugged the thought off as Naruto continued to speak. You know, if you're going to spit at me and call me a demon, can you hurry up and just do it? Naruto's arms found their way to be crossed in front of her chest as she turned to look her fellow genin in the eyes, prepared to see hate in all of them. It wasn't as if she hadn't heard them whispering about her. Nara, things may have taken a crazy turn, things may be completely different from here on out, but you know what? You're still our knucklehead friend. You're still Ino was the first to voice her opinion. You're still you. She turned to look at her teammates, encouraging them to speak up. Shikamaru sighed before shoving his hands in his pockets. This is just troublesome, just like everything else you come out with. As Ino said, you're still you're just a bit different now. He nudged Choji with his elbow and gave him a pointed look. Choji instantly came to life as the shock wore off. I will still share my chips with you. So long as you remember to leave the last one. I don't think anything has changed. Choji puffed his chest out in a proud manner. Asuma grinned proudly behind them before rubbing his hands on top of their heads, messing up all their hair. Hey, either way you're still a brat. To be honest, if anyone has a problem with this, they can learn to get the hell over it. You've been forced to hold such a large burden that no one else your age has ever had to deal with. His eyes shifted to Naruto's teammates. Sakura's eyes were glazed with unshed tears. What she had to cry for he didn't know. Asuma just hoped they could both see past the demon, and realize that the Naruto they knew was still in there. As Team 10 voiced their support, Sakura's eyes began to water. They were all happy to support Naruto with no fear. Inside her mind, Sakura was having an argument with her inner self. She wanted to just accept what had happened and work through it alongside Naruto, but every time Sakura made up her mind, all she could hear was her mother's voice calling Naruto a demon. Sakura let out a sigh, and as all eyes turned to her, she shifted her weight and crossed her arms. I want to try my hardest to be your friend. Her eyes met Naruto's before she continued. My mother has always called you a demon, and never did I question it or wonder why. I grew up being told to stay away from you, and when I was placed on the same team as you, I continued to hate you like I'd been raised. Naruto looked away, hearing those words from someone she thought was a friend. Naruto, I was wrong to believe it. Of course I was going to listen to my mother, but now I've seen the real you. I want to be my own person, and it's my decision to support you. The room was silent as Sakura wiped the tears from her eyes. She released another sigh before nodding her head. I'm going to support you. Her face turned serious as her eyes once again met Naruto's. She just hoped her mother wasn't going to hate her for this. Thanks guys, it really means a lot hearing that you don't hate me for what I am. Naruto's eyes met everyone's before landing on Sasuke. So what about you team? Naruto crosses her arms and stood up straight, as if challenging him. You're still just a dope if you asked me. While Sasuke's appearance seemed the same as always to everyone in the room, Naruto caught an amused gleam in his eye. You wouldn't find this so amusing if it happened to you team. Just because you didn't wake up one day without your little friend doesn't mean it won't happen yet. It was safe to say that all the males in the room covered their manhood. The hours had passed since Team 7 and 10 had entered the Hokage's office, and as some of the genin were dismissed, the room's atmosphere relaxed. Now young Nara, I'm sure you are wondering why I asked you to stay. The Hokage turned his attention to Shikamaru, quietly taking note of how the two genin had shifted to stand next to each other. Not really, Hokage-sama. I am assuming you would have your reasons. On the outside, Shikamaru seemed as he always did, bored and carefree. But on the inside his mind was calculating all the possible reasons the Hokage made him stay. You were the first to speak with Naruto after the change, were you not? He didn't wait for an answer. Naruto, do you mind telling me what exactly happened that day? Well, when I woke up at Tazuna's home I had to pee, so I found the bathroom and went to do my business, and while my little buddy wasn't there I may have screamed. Hey, yeah. Screamed is an understatement. Asuma broke out in a massive grin at the memory. Was a bit shocked to open the door to see a female standing there. I slipped past Tazuna and spoke to Naruto, and she explained things. We spent most of the day sitting on the roof in silence. Shikamaru shoved his hands in his pockets once again. Hiruzen sat back in his chair, his age showing clearly on his face. So to what extent are things going to change? Can the Kyuubi explain anything? Naruto paused as she listened to what Kurama had to say before replying. Do you mind if she comes out? It would be the easier thing. That way there is no double explaining and stuff. There was another pause. Rama promises to not do anything and that most of her chakra will remain in me. There was a moment's silence as the adults in the room thought it over. The room's privacy seal is already activated, but to be safe we best set up a barrier so no chakra leaks out. The Hokage gestured the two Jounin to set one up before continuing. I don't exactly wish to have to deal with the civilians if it's too much. Kakashi and Asuma moved around the room quickly and efficiently applying a barrier seal to each wall and corner of the room. All finished, pops. Naruto closed her eyes, concentrating before a mass of chakra started to appear before her, and it wasn't long until the chakra formed into a small fox, much to the shock of the others in the room. Wow, it's weird seeing you out of my mindscape. Naruto's whisper echoed through the room, breaking the others out of their thoughts. It feels good to be out. I haven't had the chance to stretch my legs freely in years. The Kyuubi's voice was as sultry as Naruto's had become. Kurama glances over everyone in the room and seeing as no one was going to speak, she mentioned the one thing everyone had seemed to forgotten. Also, Kit, I believe you've forgotten one very important thing about the mission. A certain someone who is still waiting in the forest? Oh shit! How on earth did I forget about Zabuza? Naruto frantically turned her eyes to the Hokage. I may have gained a possible ally. Don't ask me how, but he said something about me needing to learn how to. She paused, trying to remember what Zabuza has said. Something about seduction and that I was a vixen? Everyone's eyebrows shot up at that comment. She was in fact a vixen, but never would they have said it about a 12-year-old. Zabuza had balls to say it out loud. Perhaps we shall get the explaining things over and done with, and then worry about him later? Kurama's tails swished lazily behind her as she spoke. Firstly, the barrier is holding the chakra. Are you guys picking up on it? I want to know if I'm safe to go hunting later? Only if you're hunting animals. No villagers or Niken or pets. The Hokage was quick to respond as he sent a pointed look to the fox. You take all the fun away, don't worry, I will only hunt the wildlife. The Kyuubi jumped up onto the Hokage's desk before making herself comfortable, much to the discomfort of the man himself. I'm going to cut straight to the point here. When we agreed to merge, I didn't know what effects it would have on Neru. I knew my heightened senses would transfer, but I didn't believe my gender would. I thought about it but wasn't sure. The morning Neru woke as a female, she was sick. Now I believe that may return as her body gets used to accommodating my chakra and as a side effect of the change. There's also that other thing that only females have to deal with. You may want to organize a nurse to talk to her about it. Naruto's face dropped as she realized what exactly Kurama meant, but before she could say anything Kurama stopped her. Shut it, Kit. Now since the merge, our chakra has come together to create a nice little combo that probably got Zabuza talking about seduction. I believe some of you have already felt its effects? You could hear Kurama's smirk as she spoke. I don't know how strong that's going to get. Hopefully it doesn't get stronger until she's older. Kakashi stood straighter as he looked over at his student. She doesn't need anything extra to encourage boys. Unfortunately, my little Naru got the best of everything thanks to you. The scarecrow sent a filthy look to the fox, who didn't look like she could care less. Perhaps young Shikamaru here could find the time to watch out for Naruto and make sure no one tries anything? The older Sarutobi gestured to the Nara boy. Hokage-sama, we are on different teams. I'm not sure how effective that will be. Wouldn't it be better to ask Sasuke or Kakashi-sensei? Of course not. You are perfect for it. You already helped her out and knew things before others, so why not? The three adults shared a look, causing Kurama to roll her eyes. Then she stood and stretched before leaping off the desk. One other thing. With the changes, I don't know how many of my characteristics she's going to pick up on. She may start growling at things or pouncing or hunting, stalking, growing canines. Just something to watch out for. Nara. Now please release the barrier. I have nothing else to say for now. So if you'll excuse me, I'm going hunting. Hey, you can't just leave me here. Naruto shouted at the fox, who had started to happily prance towards the door. You will survive, Kit. You have your new buck to keep you safe. She once again continued on her way, but not before catching a blush on both Neru and Shikamaru's faces. The moment the barrier was dropped from the Hokage's office, Kurama disappeared. Being careful to avoid any contact with civilians and ninja like the small fox made her way to the main gates. Kurama snuck past the guards before shooting into tree line. Zabuza sat waiting in the forest, silently cleaning his sword as he thought about the events of the past couple of weeks. Never would he have thought of going to Konoha, yet here he was waiting for the brat to come get him, or for the ANBU to finally strike. It hadn't been long since he had settled down had he felt eyes begin to watch him, and he knew it was going to be either a curious animal, or most likely an ANBU. Ignoring his audience, he continued to wait, even though he honestly wasn't even sure if the brat remembered him. Hours had passed before something finally happened. Zabuza felt another person join the watching eyes. Momochi Zabuza, Lord Hokage requests your presence. The two ANBU stepped forwards, revealing a cat-like mask with red and green markings as well as an eagle with just black markings. So this is it, eh? He got to his feet and dusted his pants before reattaching his sever sword to his back. I must be bloody insane. He shook his head and followed along as the two ANBU closely guided him to the tower. The Hokage had long since known of Zabuza's presence in the forest, and had instantly set one of his most trusted ANBU to watch him. The moment Naruto said he had followed because of her, the old man was curious. As their meeting went on, his curiosity grew, and before long he sent another ANBU to bring him in. Zabuza followed with no resistance, and it wasn't long before they entered the Hokage's office through a hidden door. Inside the office, the Hokage sat behind his desk with Kakashi and Asuma to one side, but Zabuza's eyes landed on Naruto, who had taken to sitting on the floor. Behind her stood the Nara boy. "Where's the other brats?" His voice was rough, and he took to crossing his arms. All eyes were on him, and he could feel extra sets hidden away. Zabuza grimaced at the awkwardness in the air before he continued. "I don't really care, was just making conversation." "So what's with this?" He gestured to the group. "Are you gonna chuck me to the TNI? Turn me in and get the bounty? You've let me hold on to my weapons, so what is it?" Zabuza dropped his arms and clenched his fists ready. All his questions were ignored as the Hokage turned to speak with Kakashi and Asuma. They were either talking really quietly or used the barrier seal to stop sound. Zabuza assumed the later, considering both genin were also straining to hear anything being said. A few minutes passed before the 2.5 sets of eyes turned him. Kakashi shifted his attention to Naruto before returning to him. "Would you protect her?" If Zabuza has eyebrows, he would have raised them. Kakashi's question held force, and he could hear the protectiveness behind it. He shifted awkwardly and half shrugged. "I dunno, depends what for." Hardly to know the BR before he could continue, he was cut off. "Momochi Zabuza, we have spoken about the possibilities and opportunities, the positives and negatives, and Kakashi has probably listed every con to this. But despite that, we are offering you sanctuary." The Hokage paused for a moment. "Only and only if you use this opportunity to train Naruto, not just in what you already mentioned to her, but in all subjects you know." For once in his life, Zabuza was speechless. Of all odds, he hadn't expected it to be this easy. He had assumed they would have sent him to the TNI before anything. "We have many things to talk about, but not at this moment. I will summon each of you to continue later. Perhaps you should all go for lunch." The moment the Hokage dismissed them, they were all pushed from the room in light speed by what could have only been a jutsu. The group of 5 stood outside the door in shock before Naruto broke the silence. "Well, I dunno about you guys, but I'm gonna go get ramen." Before she could leave, Kakashi grabbed her by the shoulder. "Don't you want to sort this out first?" Kakashi gestured to Zabuza. "Ma, you can't always think about food." "But Kashi-sensei, I'm hungry." She gently stomped her feet as she whined. Her face shifted into a pout, and before anyone could react, her mood changed completely. Naruto stood tall and shifted her weight, somehow emphasizing her curves, and the air around them changed as her chakra spread out. "I'm sure all you strong, handsome men need a nice relaxing meal after all the hard work you've been doing." Her eyes were half closed as she looked at them. "We can't have you big strong boys starving now, can we?" The small group was silent as they stared at her in shock. Asuma was the first to break the silence as he threw his hands up in the air. "Nope, I'm out." He turned on his heel and started to walk away as the others came to. "Honestly, I can't fault him on that decision. I'd be gone too if there wasn't a missing nin following you around." Kakashi shook his head before turning to Shikamaru. "Don't think you can get away with it though. You've been given a task." With that, he ushered the now slightly smaller group in the direction of Ichiraku. "So, you're telling me you are Naruto?" "Yeah. Yes, I am Naruto, or was anyway. I think the villagers think I'm dead, so whatever." Naruto shrugged at the boy across from her, who crossed his arms as he looked her up and down. "Nope. I don't see it no way that runt could come up with something as good looking as you. Listen here, dog breath, you got a problem? Then you can deal with my new friend. I'm sure he would love to kick a mutt like you around for fun." Naruto looked past him and grinned, causing Kiba to do the same. Behind him stood a bear of a man, covered in bandages, and on his back was the largest blade he had ever seen. "What are you calling her a runt for when she's taller than ya, huh?" The man grinned wide, showing off his pointed teeth. That sight alone was enough to make Kiba want to run. "Kiba! Stand down, boy." A familiar voice broke through his thoughts and managed to pull his attention towards it. Walking towards them was his team. "Zabuza, don't cause trouble, just remember there are many eyes watching you." Kurenai stood tall as she crossed her arms as she looked the large man up and down. "You may want to loose a few layers too, don't need you overheating over something so stupid. You're not in Kiri anymore." The woman quickly turned and walked away, ushering her genin team with her to meet with Kakashi and Asuma, who were making their way over. Behind them were Team 10 and Sasuke. The two men were talking quietly between themselves, and Naruto silently decided with Kurama that it was time to test her hearing. She focused on them and managed to piece together that they were talking about Sakura and housing. "Kashi-sensei, what's wrong with Sakura?" Naruto's voice carried through the training ground they were standing in, and all eyes turned to her. "Firstly, that was a private conversation, Naruto. Secondly, how on earth did you hear that? Thirdly, we should wait for Sakura." Kakashi made his way over to where she was standing. "Sorry, Ramachan, and I wanted to test my hearing, and Sakura is here now." Naru pointed off to the tree line where a pink figure had appeared. "Did you just call?" Kakashi couldn't bring himself to complete the sentence, and instead stood there shaking his head. "Hey guys, sorry I'm late." Sakura's voice was quiet as she joined the group and she kept her face down. Sakura, are you okay? Naruto stepped towards her teammate before crouching down slightly to see her face. Sakura's eyes were puffy and bloodshot, and it was obvious to even Nara that she hadn't put any effort into her appearance. You've been crying? What happened? The pink-haired girl slowly raised her head and slowly looked around at the group before her eyes met Naruto's. I told my mum you weren't a monster. I told her she was wrong about you and that you were kind and caring. She tried to make me see her ways but I didn't budge. Naruto broke out in a wide grin hearing Sakura still supported her, but before she could voice her opinion Sakura continued. So she kicked me out. Her voice broke but she kept speaking. No, she didn't just kick me out, she's disowned me. My own mother has disowned me. Over something as stupid as an opinion. As Sakura broke down in tears, Asuma and Kurenai ushered the boys of the group away, leaving Sakura, Ino, Hinata and Naruto as well as Kakashi and Zabuza who didn't budge. Seeing Naruto's awkwardness, and knowing she wouldn't know how to comfort Sakura, Ino stepped forward and held Sakura tight. Sakura, I know I haven't been a good friend to you, but I want to make it up to you. I can ask Daddy if you can stay with us? At least until we can sort something more permanent. Sakura raised her head to look at the blonde girl. Sniffing, she replied, You would do that for me? Her eyes were wide as she stared at Ino. Yeah, so what? Can't just let my favorite billboard brow go without a bed. She rolled her eyes and crossed her arms but had a grin on her face as she did. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry for causing this, Sakura. It definitely wasn't something I thought could happen. If you want we can go clothes shopping? I need something new anyway, this no longer fits and I don't know what to buy. Naruto scratched her arm and she shifted awkwardly. If you don't wanna, that's okay too. What do you mean that doesn't fit you anymore? Sakura stood as if suddenly forgetting her problems. It looks fine if you asked me. Naruto stood there for a moment before scratching the back of her head. Well, you see, it's kind of a henge. I had to do it a couple days after we returned. She grinned again before continuing. If someone was to cancel it though, people would start calling me a senju. Everyone in the group paused as they stared at her in question, waiting for her reasoning. Ka-side raised a lot of wood. Everyone face-palmed at the girl and could pretty much hear the silent ba dumb tsk from her grin alone. Once the group had finally gotten over Naruto's joke and once Kakashi got over the fact that he hoped it was just a joke, Ino grabbed both Sakura and Naruto by the arm and dragged them off before anyone could stop them. That left all of Team 8, most of Team 10 and only Kakashi and Sasuke from Team 7 as well as an awkward Zabuza standing in the clearing wondering what to do next. Well, considering our main subject just got pulled away by Ino with that other girl, I think we should take the time to see how everyone has advanced. I hear the Chunin exams are coming up? Kurenai turned to her fellow Jounin with a hopeful look. Well, considering you just referred to my student as that other girl, I think we have some things to clarify first. Kakashi glared at the woman with his visible eye before continuing. I suggest all your students gather for this. Kurenai took the hint and ushered her students over as the boys from Team 10 made themselves comfortable. Shikamaru sat before laying back, placing his hands behind his head, and Choji pulled out a packet of chips. It didn't take long for Kiba to plunk himself down nearby with Shino standing by his side. Hinata chose to stay standing next to her sensei as she shied behind her jacket collar. Kakashi cleared his throat, sending a pointed look to Sasuke who looked like he was ready to leave. He nodded to the ground near the others, mentally telling the boy to join them in sitting. Right, now I have all your attention. That other girl, as Kurenai so lovingly put, is Naruto. He held his hand up. As Kiba went to speak, Naruto is one of my students and was formerly known as Naruto. You will not treat her differently. Do that and you will answer to myself or Zabuza over here or Shikamaru. The eyes of Team 8 went from bored to wide, then to shock and fear, then on to pure confusion as to why Shikamaru was mentioned. Kiba decided it must be true if even the Jounin were talking about Naruto now being Naruto, while Shino just nodded once. Hinata on the other hand had gone into shock. The boy she had always admired was now a female. The previously planned group training day had been a disaster. After Ino, Sakura and Naruto had decided to go shopping and Kakashi had revealed Naruto was previously Naruto, the group had split. Kakashi and Asuma were once again chatting away, most likely planning something that would never happen, with Zabuza hawking nearby with his sword on his lap as he cleaned it. Again. The young boys had taken the opportunity to be lazy and have a day off, which when you think about it comes with no surprise. Shikamaru and Choji were still relaxing and eating chips respectively while Sasuke was sitting there thinking away to himself. Kiba and Shino were sitting nearby quietly chatting about what had just happened. The boy from the academy days, well known for pranking and just simply being an idiot, was now gone, and in his place was a stunning young woman, who seemed better well off than the girls they'd grown up with. The fact they'd been given no explanation as to how this happened annoyed them greatly. Why is Shikamaru one of her protectors? Kiba whispered, but his voice carried through the clearing. He is so lazy. What's he gonna do? Look at someone with a bored expression and hope they go away. I'd be a better protector. Wait until she returns and I will show her that. Kiba continued to work himself up over the situation, his macho attitude getting in the way of rational thinking to the point that neither of the two had noticed their third teammate had disappeared along with their sensei. The two girls had moved to just inside the tree line for privacy as Hinata cried. To think all these years she had been trying to build her confidence, and work hard to better herself for a boy that never really paid attention to her. A boy that was now more womanly than herself. Eventually the three girls returned, each hauling a load of shopping bags with them. Sakura had brightened up a considerable amount, but sadness could still be seen in her eyes, while Naruto had shied into herself with a blush permanent in her face. Ino on the other hand was sporting a wicked grin. You boys better be ready for this. Damn girl had me questioning my preference, if you know what I mean. Ino proudly stepped forward with her grin somehow getting wider. Everyone, I present to you Naruto. She widely gestured to the girl behind her before she paused. Nara stood there scratching the back of her head looking the exact same as what she did when they left. Naruto! Sakura smacked the girl on the backside of the head before continuing, drop the henge. You can't stay like this forever. Besides, we put a lot of effort into our new outfits, and I'll be damned if you don't show yours off. Sakura held her fist out while she spoke, Red growled, to Naruto, causing the others to back off a bit. Sakura, Naruto whined, you three are evil you know? My freaking arse is hanging out in this. And my tits just stay in place when I walk. Imaging what they'll do when I train. Kakashi approaches the girls waving his hands in the air to stop them from continuing their conversation further. Hold on a second, first of all three? Naruto could see the look of confusion on his face even through the mask. Ramachandra, Kashi-sensei. Right. I'm sure she's behind the reason your arse and tits are hanging out. His voice went a couple pitches higher as he spoke, causing him to clear his throat as the three girls shared a look. Pretty much. Yep, Kami, I love her. All the three girls answered at the same time, nodding. Maybe the hen should stay up until I know exactly what you want to be parading around town in. In a matter of minutes the scarecrow had aged significantly. If he was to ever see his sensei again, Kakashi was sure he would be murdered. Nope. Ino turned and forced the henge to be released, and before anyone could stop it a puff of smoke appeared and disappeared just a quick. Before them all stood Naruto with an extremely hard-to-miss lack of Haku's kimono, and in its place was the tiniest bodysuit any of them had ever seen. Orange, of course. Ino and Sakura forced the girl to turn around slowly as if to show her new outfit off. The back was low cut, and her arse cheeks literally hung out just as she had said. The poor excuse of clothing sat perfectly between her voluptuous cheeks, emphasizing her narrow waist and wide hips with the high rise of the suit. As Naruto turned to face them again, everyone caught a good view of cleavage through the open front. It was enough to make everyone's jaws drop. For Kami's sake. The shopkeeper actually let you buy this. Kakashi turned to the group behind him and growled as he noticed their reactions. By his standards some would survive. Choji had frozen with a chip halfway to his mouth, with his jaw on the ground, while Shikamaru had taken to looking at the sky far too intently for it to be normal. Shino looked as normal as ever, but that didn't stop Kakashi from growling at him too. The main problem was Kiba. The grin on that boy's face made Kakashi want to rip his head off. If you want to live, I suggest you quit staring at my sister. Kakashi's voice was like venom as it carried through the training ground, putting all attention on him. The man took a step towards the young Inuzuka, fully prepared to skin him and feed him to his dogs. Perhaps it was a little extreme, but it would be worth it. Kashi-sensei, cut it out. If anyone wants to try anything, I can easily set Ramachan on them. Kakashi felt a hand grab his arm, causing him to pause. He looked back over his shoulder to lock eyes with Naruto's crimson orbs. He could almost feel Kurama speaking to him through them, at least by a jacket. Shikamaru sighed as he slowly made his way home. They had all been given the afternoon off after the strange meeting that morning, and so Asuma-sensei decided to shout them a barbecue lunch. It had gone down the same way it always does. Asuma would order the meat and put it on the grill the second it arrives, just to sit there trying to convince Ino to eat and for Choji to not eat everything. It was amusing how things could easily go back to how it always was even after such a dramatic event. Shikamaru couldn't help but wonder if it was the same for Team 7. As Shikamaru made his way past the academy, he caught a glimpse of bright orange near the swings, and being unable to stop himself from feeding his curiosity, he turned towards them. Sitting with her back to everything was Naruto. The young Nara stood there for a moment, mentally debating if he should walk over to her or not. Yet, while it was extremely tempting to turn his back and continue heading home, he found himself walking over to her. It's nice to see you actually went and got a jacket? His voice was strained and awkward, but Nara still answered him. We had already bought one when we went shopping. It's just a trench coat, but I couldn't find what I actually wanted. Shikamaru noticed how her voice was quiet and that she didn't turn to face him. Humming, he made his way to the forest floor on the other side of the swing, strategically placing himself so he could see her face. Even in the bad lighting he could see the tear stains on her cheeks. It was strange to see them on her, and it made him want to run. Growing up, Naruto has always found ways to overcome the need to cry, so Shikamaru has never actually witnessed real tears on him. Perhaps the new hormones are sending her emotions out whack? I know you want to ask what's up. You don't have to be so awkward, Shika. Don't worry so much. Nara let out a short laugh before continuing. You know, I never thought this would cause so much trouble. Shikamaru looked at her in question. Never thought making Sakura a friend would cause her to become homo. She's not homeless though. She's staying with Ino, remember? Shikamaru cut her off before she could say too much. Well, either way, her mother disowned her just because of me. Me? I know people hate me for what I am, but hell, Shikamaru, I dunno. I was thinking, maybe, I should have stayed unconscious. She raised her eyes to meet his. Shikamaru could see the unshed tears building up again, so quickly came up with a plan to stop them. Either way, Naru, you're here now. You are who you are and you are what you are, but you know what? Despite what happened, Sakura still wants to be your friend. She doesn't hate you for it. No one hates you for it. Kami, this is nothing in comparison to what happened in Nami no Kuni. Raise your head up, and I don't know. He paused, shrugging shoulders. Have you had ramen since we all returned? Naruko smiled softly. Not yet. I didn't know how to face them. I've honestly avoided going out anywhere until today. She looked at Shikamaru with a sheepish expression before grinning. Why? You going to shout me? Shikamaru's face fell, knowing instantly he wasn't going to be able to get himself out of this. Rolling his eyes, he let out a sigh and stood. One bull. Naruko stood up from the swing and let out a big laugh. We shall see about that, Nara. She threw her coat on as she turned in the direction of her favorite store, giving Shikamaru no choice but to follow her. The morning had started as it always did in Konoha. The shinobi were moving around the village setting off for particular tasks, while civilians were preparing for their day as the birds sang their songs. As the sun rose above the tree lines, Shikamaru stirred in his bed. He could hear movement outside his door and knew instantly that it was his mother on the other side. Shikamaru groaned and rolled over, pulling his blankets above his head in an attempt to avoid being forced to get up. Shikamaru, it's time to get up. You have team training today and I want you to get a decent feed first. His mother's voice was unusually soft as she opened his door. Come on, sweetie, up we hop. Shikamaru was instantly skeptical and his mind started calculating what his mother wanted, but before he could voice any questions, his mom ripped the blankets off the bed. Mom, training isn't until later. I've got plenty time to eat beforehand, and besides we will probably get lunch beforehand. Can I stay here? He paused, feeling the temperature of the air drop. Getting up, he instantly jumped out of bed and followed his mother out of the room. As they reached the kitchen, his mother went about cooking breakfast. The young Nara took a seat at the breakfast table and watched his mother in silence. Every now and then the woman would turn to smile at him. It was nerving, really. It wasn't long until a decent serving of natto was placed under his nose. Silently his mother placed her own serve down opposite him and sat smiling at him. Trying to ignore her, Shikamaru started eating. So I heard you went to lunch with a pretty young lady the other day, Shikamaru froze with his hand halfway to his mouth. Slowly he looked up to meet his mother's eyes. It was just a meal. His voice was steady as he spoke. So, what's her name? Her smile grew slightly, and in an attempt to hide it she ate another mouthful of food. Her name is Naruko, and as I said, it was only a meal. She had a rough day, so I shouted her a bowl of ramen. Nothing else. He muttered a troublesome and rubbed his face. At least now he knew what his mother was up to. That didn't make her easier to ignore though. She continued poking and prodding until Shikamaru had finally had enough. He excused himself and thanked his mother for the breakfast before bolting to his room, changing quickly and leaving the house in a scurry. It was definitely the fastest anyone had seen the boy move. Rama, piss off. Naruko rolled over in her bed, pulling the covers up higher as the small fox above her snickered. I wouldn't have to do this if you had woken up on time. Kurama sang above her, and she continued to bounce up and down. You should be grateful this is all I'm doing. Naruko slammed the blankets down and sat up, eyes instantly locking on Kurama's in a glare. I hate you some days. The young woman sighed and slid out of her bed before walking groggily to her closet. Pulling the doors open, she sighed again and started shuffling through her new clothes, as Ino, Sakura and Rama called them. Honestly, Rama, I don't think I've seen anyone walk around freely in these clothes. Pulling out multiple bodysuits, Naruko rolled her eyes. At least they're orange, she muttered before shuffling into the wardrobe itself to find some other clothes. As she disappeared into the mound of clothes and blankets, Kurama settled herself down on the foot of the bed, shaking her head with what looked like a smirk. A few moments later, Naru reappeared dragging a box out that was labeled for Naruto age 13-14. Naruko stood proudly before turning to poke her tongue out at the fox, who was still smirking. Thank you, Gigi. Now let's hope there's some decent pants in here. With that, she tore into the box and started pulling out the contents. They were all second-hand clothing, some being Asuma's old uniforms and some being random stuff Gigi had picked up from the donation bins. It was as she grabbed a pair of shorts she stopped. Let's try these on, eh? Naruko proceeded to pull her pajamas off and put the pants on, only to be disappointed. Not only did they look ugly, they were ridiculously big. Damn it! She sat on the floor admitting defeat for the morning. Rolling her eyes, she looked back over to Kurama. Looks like I have to go shopping. The fox ignored her and began licking her paw, causing the girl to sigh. If only it was that easy for me. With a laugh, she got up and changed into the orange bodysuit, and quickly threw her coat on top before proceeding to tackle her hair into pigtails and attach her weapons. Pouches. Well, I guess I will see you later then? Naruko turned to look at Rama, who finally acknowledged her. Might go hunt some rabbits. Just pull me back if you have a big mission or something's wrong, kid. With that, they went their separate ways. It was as Naruko made her way to the market district did she notice she was being followed. Looking around, she noticed a rock-like box following her. Rolling her eyes, she forced her stalker out into the open. You have amazing detection skills. What I've heard must be true. Are you really a female now? Konohamaru appeared from his hiding place with two other children who stood proudly behind the boy. Konohamaru, what are you doing? Her eyes shifted to the other two with him. And, who are your friends? The boy stepped forward and sniffed before announcing his name. I am the brains of Team Konohamaru, Udan. As he posed, the girl joined him. I am the sexiest girl at the academy, Moegi. As they spoke, the group was joined by Sakura, who gave them all a strange look. What on earth are you guys doing? We were here to ask boss if she wanted to play ninja. The three kids grinned as they beamed up at Naruto. How mature of you, Naru. Sakura crossed her arms and raised her brow at the other girl. Say, boss, is this your girlfriend? If she is, I mean, you could probably do better now. That Konohamaru paused as he felt the temperature drop. He turned his eyes to see the pink girl glaring at him. I didn't, Maya. Konohamaru, run! At Naruto's yell, he turned and ran as fast he could, silently cursing his short legs. As he rounded a corner, he ran straight into something and was instantly lifted up into the air. Knowing the others weren't far behind him, he let out a shout. You little shit, watch where you're going. I should squish you into the dirt for that. Konohamaru looked up to see a scary-looking teenager scowling back at him. You put him down, ya makeup-wearing freak. Naruto ran up to them, hand ready by her weapons pouch. Yeah? And what are you gonna do? The intruder moved Konohamaru to the side and paused when he saw who was standing in front of him. Don't see people like you back home, Kankuro. If someone was to wear that back home, they'd get sand in their unmentionables. The voice came from a blonde girl standing behind him, and as the two shared a look, Naruto spoke again. I said, put him down. Naruto spoke with force and silently pulled Kurama back to her. It wasn't long after that the small fox appeared in front of the girl, causing the two strangers to startle. The boy, now identified as Kankuro, dropped Konohamaru to the ground with a huff. You seem pretty feisty for a brat. The two faced each other off, ready to battle if need be, but before anything could happen, Naruto's attention was pulled away when Kurama's first stood up. Rama, what's wrong? When she received no answer, Naruto looked up in the direction of Kurama's attention and instantly felt something was off. There, standing upside down in a nearby tree, was another foreign nin, but this one was different. The strange boy reminded her of Kurama before they made friends. Sakura, kids, stay behind me. I don't trust this guy. Both Kankuro and the blonde turned to the newcomer in fear. Gaara, Kankuro, you are an embarrassment to our village. He turned his attention to Kurama and Naruto before continuing. What is your name? Naruto made sure to keep her voice steady as she spoke. I am Naruto, this is Kurama. The moment Kurama's name left her mouth, his eyes widened slightly before his attention went back to the other two. We must leave now. With that, he disappeared in a wave of sand, and the other two turned to leave as well. Before they got too far, Sakura called out to them, Wait. Why are you guys in our village? The blonde girl turned back to face Sakura and scoffed. We are here for the Chunin exams. It was later that afternoon when Shikamaru finally met up with his teammates. The young Nara had spent the morning cloud watching, thinking things over when, after a few hours, he had heard a small commotion across the way. It wasn't hard to pick Ino's loud voice out. Shikamaru stood dusting himself off and started walking in the direction of her voice. As he rounded the corner, he saw Ino, Sakura and Naruto chatting away, with Kurama sitting at their feet. I just don't think anyone should trust him. Seriously, Ino, if you come across him, stay away. You need to tell the others too. Naruto's voice was slightly off as she spoke, which only made Shikamaru wonder what had happened. Shika! Ino pushed past Naruto to grab onto him and pull him into the circle and starting talking again. It didn't take long for them to fill him in on what had happened. The Chunin exams, huh? Maybe that's what our team training sessions are about this Arvo. Shika put his hands in his pockets and looked up to the sky, troublesome. Perhaps we should head over to our training grounds? Sakura looked at everyone questioningly. It's almost time for Team 7's meeting anyway. I don't know about you guys. The two teams made their way to the training grounds and eventually met with Choji. The two girls from Team 7 bid their goodbyes as they approached their grounds, and Team 10 continued to theirs. As they entered, they saw Asuma-sensei standing in the middle with his arms crossed and smoke in his mouth. Congratulations, I'm entertaining you lot into the Chunin exams. Hopefully you show up to them earlier than you did to practice. Night time had fallen over Konoha, marking the start of the Jounin celebrations of entering their genin into the Chunin exams. The small group had met at their favorite bar, and it wasn't long before they'd claimed a booth. Kakashi, Asuma and Kurenai had all entered their rookie teams, and while some weren't happy about the fast pace they were moving in, the three senseis still received many congratulatory smacks on the backs. It was after a few hours had passed that Guy finally cornered Kakashi. Kakashi, my hip rival. You should be enjoying the night, what has you just sitting here for? Part of the group fell silent as the scarecrow actually answered the man. Ma, things have just been weird lately. First, Naruto woke up one morning as a woman, and next thing I know, I have a bloody missing nin as my shadow. Now I've put them in Chunin exams, just can't shake the feeling something else is going to happen. I think that's the most I've ever heard you say in one burst. Kurenai broke out in a large grin before Kakashi glared at her. Look, can't exactly help you on the whole. My male student is now female, but if she needs help or advice from someone other than a 12 to 13-year-old, just come and get me. As for Zabuza, he's all yours. Asuma waved his hands in front of himself but couldn't help the smirk that broke into his face. Thought he was meant to be with Nara anyway. Gee, thanks guys. Yeah, not until the exams are over with now. Hokage-sama is afraid Zabuza will sneak in and encourage her to just flash her enemies into submission. He doesn't want it to look like our next generation is inspired by Anko. Hey, maybe you should introduce Zabuza to Anko and Ibiki? Asuma lit another smoke as he glanced over at Kakashi, who looked like he had frozen. Kakashi? That would either break this village or do this village a whole lot of good. All the jounin paused as they thought it over. It wasn't long until they all came to the same decision. Now they just had to find Anko and Ibiki. The next day came quickly for the genin of Team 7. When Sakura and Naruto had entered their training ground the day before to see Kakashi, Zabuza and Sasuke standing seriously, they knew instantly what was about to happen. Kakashi had spoken to them evenly while making sure they knew they didn't have to enter if they didn't want to, and yet here they were standing out the front of the academy awkwardly. Well, here goes nothing, I guess? Naruto scratched her bicep as she turned to look at her teammates. Sasuke responded with a grunt and a grimace while Sakura took a deep breath. I wonder if the others have been entered? There was a glint of worry in her eyes as she looked at Naruto. Not exactly looking forward to seeing that Suna team again. Let's just hope they're all bark and no bite. The girls could hear a slight hint of humor in Sasuke's voice, so stayed silent waiting for his final comment. Like Naruto, Sakura giggled as Sasuke quickly walked towards the entrance while Naruto followed behind him with a pout but didn't respond to his comment. Instead, the girl waited until they were entering the building and shoulder-barged Sasuke into the door frame. Oops. Naruto turned and poked her tongue out at the Uchiha before running down the hall towards the sign-up area. Don't encourage her, Sasuke. Let's just get this over with. Sakura grabbed the boy by the arm and pulled him in the direction Naruto had run in, sending Sasuke into a bit of shock that she wasn't trying to flirt with him. The two finally caught up to Naruto when she stopped at a large group of people watching a loud commotion. Before them was a strange-looking boy with a bowl cut, dressed in a green jumpsuit with orange leg warmers and a red belt that held his forehead protector. If Sasuke and Sakura had ever thought Naruto's old outfit of choice was strange, they didn't think that now. As the argument continued, Sasuke observed the two genin stopping them from passing through the door. There was something about them that didn't seem right. Why were they doing this? Hold on, that's not the door we want. Sasuke voiced his opinion and used Sakura as backup. Even if she hadn't noticed, he knew some of the people knew they had been the rookies and would believe it. The moment he spoke, the two genin turned on them ready to start a fight. Beside him, Sasuke could feel Naruto starting to twitch. They'd been standing there too long. He shot her a look, silently passing on a message causing her to roll her eyes. Just hurry up. Sasuke struck out at the genin the same time he sent a kick. But before any contact could be made, both ankles were caught by the same strange boy they'd been bullying before. As the green-wearing boy spoke, his team came forward. Lee, Wa, oh, for Kami's sake, can everyone just shut up? All eyes turned to Naruto, who was standing there with her hands on her hips tapping her foot. I'm freaking sick of standing here, yeah? Why are yas fighting? It's already been stated that we are on the wrong level. Seriously, why are you two playing games? Finally get sick of gate duty, huh? Can everyone just move out of my fucking way before? Naruto! Sakura silenced her teammate's rant with a slap on the back of her head. There is no reason to be talking like that. But I do agree, can we just move on already? The two girls turned to Sasuke, who just achened in response, but before they could turn to leave, the green-wearing boy spoke up again. Never before have I seen a woman as beautiful as you. Would you please be my girlfriend? Team 7 froze as they turned to look back at the boy to see who exactly he was talking to. His eyes were locked on Sakura, who just stood there shocked. Well, I don't know about you, Sakura, but I'd say yes just for the free food. Naruto! Once again Sakura sloped her on the back of the head. Turning to the boy, she answered him. I am sorry, but I must decline your offer. Thank you though. As the boy silently cried, Team 7 finally managed to make their escape. Those brows. They were like caterpillars, I kinda like them. Sakura turned to Naruto with disgusted look on her face, but before she could respond they were interrupted by Sasuke. Naruto, how did you know those two were the gate guards? The two girls froze as Naruto thought about it. Well, I mean, they were chibi versions of them and I could just feel it. Yeah. Good enough, let's just hurry up. Kakashi had been standing by the doors waiting for his genins to show. After a while the three of them finally made an appearance, as they turned the corner down the hall silently arguing over something. Rolling his eyes, he pushed himself off the wall and greeted them. Congratulations on all deciding to enter. If one of you had decided against it, then the others wouldn't have been able to enter, but I didn't want you knowing that in case you pressured each other into entering. He looked at each of them before continuing. Good luck. Kakashi shunted away before they could answer. Sharing a look, the three decided to enter the room. Sasuke pushed the door open and stepped through, letting the two girls pass him. Damn, Naruto whispered as she stepped by. Before them were hundreds of genin that were there for the exact same reason as them. The become Chunin. Well, looky who is here too. Kiba appeared in front of them with Akamaru resting on his head. Behind him stood Shino and Hinata. Hey, dog breath. Before Kiba could respond to Naruto, they were interrupted by Ino. Hey, Sasuke. The girl went to cling onto the boy before noticing Sakura and Naruto looking at her. Hey guys, the blonde grinned awkwardly before stepping away from the Uchiha, causing said boy to raise an eyebrow at his teammates. First Sakura had backed off and now they'd managed to stop Ino. The space was weird. Nice to see the rookie 9 are all here. Shikamaru and Choji appeared alongside Ino, It will be interesting to see how everyone had progressed. Shika, you know how we've progressed. Sakura lives with Ino, and we've seen each other every other day since Wave. Naruko crossed her arms over her chest as she looked at the boy. That may be so, but we don't really train together, and we haven't seen much other teammates since graduation. The group continued chatting away between themselves before they were interrupted by an older boy with white hair. He introduced himself as Kabuto, and pointed out they should probably keep it down as they were gaining a lot of unwanted attention. Kabuto continued on talking, explaining his experience to the group, and introduced them to his information cards. As time passed by, the rookies gained information on Lee, Gaara, and because he wanted to test how reliable the cards were, Sasuke asked for information on Naruto, much to the dismay of the girl. As the two argued about revealing information on one of their own when foreign teams were listening, Kabuto went through a confrontation of his own with a team from Sound. Before things could escalate, a cloud of smoke appeared at the front of the room. As it cleared, a group proctor stepped forward. Leading them was a large man with a bandana on his head. The man introduced himself as the head of Konohagakura's torture and interrogation department, Marino Ibiki, before explaining the first exam. The moment the words "written exam" left his mouth, Naruko broke down. The moment the timer started, Naruko began shifting awkwardly in her seat. Glancing around the room, she noticed Kotetsu and Izumo no longer in their genin form. Instead, they were sitting along the wall as part of the group watching for cheaters. Sighing, she switched her attention to the ceiling. Searching carefully, she noted a few odd-looking stains, a couple holes where someone had thrown a pencil or two, and a weird-looking bug. Without thinking, she started tapping her fingers on the desk, gaining a couple annoyed glances. Not that she noticed. As more time passed by, Naruko still hadn't even glanced at her test paper, causing Kurama, who had taken to resting in her mindscape, to sigh. "Naruko, are you at least going to try?" Naruko clicked her tongue rather loudly, again receiving more glances. "Nope." Kurama went silent for a moment, giving Nair a false hope and thinking the fox had given up. Unfortunately, right before her eyes a puff of smoke appeared, and from it, out reached an orange paw that slapped her in the face. "Hey!" Forgetting where she was, Naruko stood, knocking her chair over in the process. "Sit down and shut up!" Ibiki shouted across the room, causing everyone bar Naruko to freeze. As the girl picked her chair back up, she sent a filthy look to the fox, who was now resting casually on the desk. Before meeting Ibiki's stare, she started it. Apparently that was the wrong thing to say because the man threw a kunai at her paper. "Don't make me kick you out for simply being a menace, kid." Naruko rolled her eyes as she plunked herself back down on her seat. Everyone get back to it. During the disturbance, many genin had been caught cheating, clearly slacking off in their attempts while there was a distraction. Bring the number of teams down dramatically. As those disqualified left, Kurama sent a sly smirk to Neru, who just shook her head in the fox. "Dare you to draw a snoring teddy bear on your paper?" As Naruko heard Kurama's thoughts, a grin broke out on her face. Her eyes shifted up to Ibiki to find he was staring at her, which only made her grin widen. Picking up her pen, she set to work on her masterpiece. Every now and then the girl would glance up at Ibiki, looking him up and down before continuing. As she worked away, Kotetsu and Izumo had taken to watching her along with Ibiki, which didn't escape the fox's notice. Silently, Kurama told her to draw the two holding hands, which caused the girl to grin once again. Time finally came for the final question, which scared many others out of the exam. Looking around, Naruko met Sakura's eyes and smiled, silently reassuring her everything would be fine. As she received a nod in return, Naruko turned her attention back to Ibiki. The man was currently glaring at some of the genin in the front row, and just as two stood up claiming they couldn't risk it, Naruko spoke up. "You know, Ibiki, under all that seriousness is a cuddly little teddy bear." His glare turned to her once again as she heard some snickers around her. "And what makes you think that?" The room fell silent, waiting for Naruko to answer, but before she could, a loud crash came from the window. From it flew a large banner. "Anko! You're early. I haven't even finished the last question." Ibiki turned his rage to the silhouette behind the banner. "Yeah? Well, let me do it for ya. You all pass." She stiked a pose, deliberately hitting Ibiki in the face as she did. "Right, now that's done, let's move on to the second part of the exams. This'll definitely cut the numbers in half. You must be going soft, Ibiki." At that, she disappeared from the room, leaving the genin confused and lost on where to go. Ibiki had no choice but to direct the group on where to go, sending a couple of his helpers with them, but not before explaining the true meaning behind the exam and the final question. As the last genin left the room, Ibiki sighed and started walking towards where Naruko had been sitting. As he approached, he could see she had turned her paper over and had left a sketch of something. Stepping forward, he picked the paper up only to growl at what he saw. There in the middle of the page was a drawing of a teddy bear cozy in bed with little snore lines Z's coming up from it. As the man rolled his eyes, he saw another little drawing in the bottom corner, and couldn't stop a laugh from escaping his lips. Standing side by side, holding hands, was Kotetsu and Izumo with a little love heart between them. Ibiki knew straight away that he was going to photocopy that part and pin it to the walls of the Jounin lounge. Once the group had finally been led to the destination of the second exam, many faltered, seeing the dark looming trees that stood well above them. Welcome to Training Ground 44, or as many locals know it, the Forest of Death. A wicked grin on Anko's face as she looked around at everyone's reactions. This was the reason she accepted the job as a proctor. Anko went on to explain the risks of the forest, not bothering to hide her joy about their fear that many would not make it out alive. As Anko spoke, Teams 7 and 10 stood together off to the side, quietly voicing their opinions on what Anko was saying. The only one who had previous experience with the forest was Kurama, and that was only because she had been hunting here recently. The two teams had agreed to meet up and travel together through the forest, then hunt for the scrolls in a pack. It was purely by coincidence that they had been assigned entrance gates. They were right next to each other. As Anko announced the beginning of the second exam and the gate guards cleared them for entrance, Team 10 instantly turned right and ran along the fence line as Team 7 turned left. It wasn't long before the two teams met and formed one. From outside the fence line, unknown to them, they were being watched right up until they disappeared into the tree line. Perched up in the Konoha forest sat Asuma and Kakashi with Zabuza on the ground leaning on a tree. Interesting how bad events lead to good things, Asuma spoke gently, and the other two men just nodded in agreement. What are you lot doing here? And who is this? Anko had appeared in front of them, giving Zabuza a strange look. I call bullshit. It's not bullshit, Anko. This is Zabuza and he is real. Kakashi jumped down from the branch he was in. Actually, I was planning on introducing him to both you and Ibiki, but didn't want to do while you were proctors in the exams. Anko crossed her arms as she gave Zabuza another, rather long and perhaps intrusive, glance up and down. I guess he can chill with us, might be able to make some of our guests in the cells shit themselves. She turned on her heel, silently laughing before announcing rather loudly she was going for Dango, and that if anyone interrupted her she would shove the sticks in places they shouldn't be put. As the two teams ran, Naruko's face scrunched up. Hey guys, can we stop? I got a wee eye. Groaning, the others slowed to a stop and Naru ran in behind a tree. As she returned, Kurama started growling. What's up with you? Naruko gave the fox a funny look before turning to the others. But before she could speak up, Sasuke interrupted her. Who are you? What do you mean? It's me. Then why is Kurama growling at you? The others in the group tensed, ready for anything. Maybe ate something wrong? I dunno, who cares? At that response, everyone changed their stance, ready to fight, while Shikamaru and Choji broke away to search for the real Naruko. If you're going to henge into someone, try and do your research first. To start with, Naru wears her weapons pouch on the other leg and her hitai 8 over her navel. The moment the words left Sasuke's mouth, the person realized their henge and jumped forward to grab their scrolls. But luckily Sasuke was quick to react and managed to stop and injure the nin, forcing him to retreat. The moment Shikamaru and Choji had found Naruko, Shika started laughing. There on the ground was a hog-tied Naru, thankfully with all parts covered. Shut up. They didn't even let me pee, just untie me or I think may piss me pants, Naru groaned as they turned her head to glare at Shikamaru. Choji moves forward to cut the ties and she was up, standing quicker than he could blink. Naru quickly shooed them and forced them to turn around as she did her business. After a bit of swearing and complaining about her clothes, Naru finished and walked between them, heading back to the others. As they all met up again, Kurama decided to constantly check their surroundings and feel for the negative emotions. She also took note of each of their chakras to store away for identification. She notified them the location of the sound team far into the distance, and just as she picked up in another unknown, a large gust of wind broke the teams apart. As the group was blown apart, Kurama grabbed onto those closest with her tails. Once they crashed into the dirt, she looked back to see Naruko, Ino and Shikamaru. Cursing, she forced them all to stand up and told them they need to get back to the others as soon as possible, but just as Naruko went to comment, a large snake appeared behind her, causing Ino to scream. Everything from there happened so quick. The snake struck out at Naru and swallowed her whole. Then as the others stood there shocked, the snake's stomach expanded out wide until it exploded. As Ino gagged at the flesh hitting her, Naruko stood up out of the mess with a frown on her face. That was fucked. She wiped her arms and legs down with her hands before shaking them off. Let's just get back to the others. They ran as a group and quickly found where they had been blown away. Looking around for the others, they found them up in the trees. All three of them were in defensive positions facing a strange-looking woman. From their position on the ground they could see another snake preparing to attack the three from behind, and without thinking Naruko jumped into action, pulling Kurama back into her. From where Shikamaru and Ino were standing they saw everything happen. They watched as Naru pulled the attacker's attention away and defeat the snake in her QB-enhanced form, and then cried out in horror as Naruko was thrown unconscious into a tree. Before they could climb up to their level to help fight, the woman turned onto Sasuke and used a jutsu that stretched her neck out and bit him, causing him to collapse almost instantly. The moment Shikamaru and Ino landed in the branch the others were on, the attacker was gone. What the heck just happened? Ino called out as she took in the scene around her. Choji and Sakura were tending to the unconscious Sasuke and Shikamaru had already made his way to Naruko. We need to move. Then we can talk. I will carry Naruko. Choji, do you think you can carry Sasuke? It was hours later when they finally settled down for rest. The group had found an opening in one of the large trees that would fit them comfortably as well as offer them protection. What if Naruto acts like a fox? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel. And leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.